we ask the question that Albus Dumbledore spent a century avoiding. What if he hadn't walked away? What if, on the summer day in 1938, when a young professor visited a London orphanage and met a boy who could make things move without touching them, and who kept stolen trophies in his wardrobe, and who had once taken 2 children to a cave and done something terrible to them? What if Dumbledore had not done what he did in canon? In canon, Dumbledore gave Tom Riddle a letter, a warning, and a train ticket. He gave him Hogwarts but not guidance. He gave him a school but not a home. He watched from a distance as the most dangerous child he'd ever met became the most dangerous wizard who'd ever lived. And he spent the rest of his life regretting the watching. This is the story of what happens when Dumbledore doesn't watch, when Dumbledore acts. When the most brilliant wizard of the century looks at an 11-year-old orphan who is already showing signs of something terrible and says, "Not on my watch. This child is mine." This is not a redemption story. Tom Riddle is not redeemed. Tom Riddle is redirected, and the difference between a redeemed person and a redirected one is the difference between a river that has been purified and a river that has been given banks. The water is the same. The damage it does depends on where it flows. August 1938. Wool's Orphanage. Dumbledore arrived at the orphanage on a Tuesday. He was 57 years old, though the beard and the spectacles suggested a man who had been alive long enough to find the experience tiring. The beard, the half-moon spectacles, the general impression of a man who had been alive long enough to find the experience tiring. He was the Transfiguration Professor at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and he was here because a child had appeared on the school's registry, and because the child was an orphan, and because orphans required special handling. Mrs. Cole, the orphanage matron, met him in the office. She was wary. The wariness of a woman who dealt with institutions and who had learned that institutional representatives arrived with forms and departed with problems. "Tom Riddle," Mrs. Cole said. "What's he done now?" "He has done nothing," Dumbledore said. "I represent a school that offers places to children with particular abilities." "Abilities," Mrs. Cole said. The word sat between them. "Mrs. Cole," Dumbledore said. "May I see the boy?" She took him to Tom's room. The room was small, clean, institutional, the same room that every child in the orphanage occupied, with the same bed and the same wardrobe and the same view of the London street. Tom Riddle was sitting on the bed. He was 11 years old. Dark-haired, pale, handsome in as children who had never been loved were sometimes handsome, the features arranged with a precision that suggested nature had done its best work on a canvas that environment had left blank. "Hello, Tom," Dumbledore said. "Are you a doctor?" Tom said. "No," Dumbledore said. "I'm a teacher." "I don't need a teacher," Tom said. "I'm cleverer than all of them." "All of whom?" Dumbledore said. "Everyone," Tom said. Dumbledore looked at the boy, at the 11-year-old who had just said everyone with the absolute, unchallengeable certainty of someone who had assessed the world and found it wanting. The certainty was not arrogance in the conventional sense. It was not the puffing up of a child who needed to feel important. It was the cold, analytical conclusion of a mind that had been measuring itself against others since it was old enough to measure, and that had found, consistently, that the measurement favoured itself. "I am also clever," Dumbledore said. "Perhaps cleverer than you." Tom looked at him. The looking was not the looking of a normal 11-year-old, curious, open, the assessment of a child encountering an adult. The looking was the assessment of a predator encountering another predator. Measuring, evaluating, determining whether this new presence was a threat or an opportunity. "Prove it," Tom said. "I can do something that you can do," Dumbledore said, "and I can do it better." He turned to the wardrobe. The wardrobe door opened, without a touch, without a gesture, with the silent, effortless precision of someone for whom magic was as natural as breathing. Tom's stolen trophies fell out. The yo-yo, the thimble, the mouth organ. The small, pathetic collection of things that Tom had taken from other children, not because he wanted the objects, but because the taking was power, and power was the only thing Tom understood. Tom went white. The whiteness was not embarrassment. Tom did not experience embarrassment. The whiteness was fear, the fear of being known, the fear of someone seeing the inside of the wardrobe and understanding what the inside of the wardrobe meant. You are not the only one who can do this, Dumbledore said. You are, however, the only one who does it to hurt other children. I don't hurt them, Tom said. You took their things, Dumbledore said. They're mine now, Tom said. They are not yours, Dumbledore said. They belong to the children you took them from, and you will return them. Make me, Tom said. Dumbledore looked at the boy who had just said, make me to the most powerful wizard in Britain, the boy who was 11 and who was already negotiating from a position of defiance because defiance was the only negotiating position the orphanage had taught him. In canon, this was the moment where Dumbledore chose distance. He saw the warning signs, the cruelty, the control, the stolen objects, the cave incident, and he chose to watch rather than intervene. He brought Tom to Hogwarts and monitored from afar, allowing the school to do what the school did, educate, sort, contain. In this story, Dumbledore chose differently. I will not make you, Dumbledore said. I will, however, make you an offer. What offer? Tom said. The school I represent is called Hogwarts, Dumbledore said. It is a school for children who can do what you can do. Move things without touching them. Make things happen. Magic isn't real, Tom said. You know it is, Dumbledore said. Tom was quiet. The school will teach you to control it, Dumbledore said. To understand it, to use it properly. But the school is not enough. Not enough for what? Tom said. Not enough for you, Dumbledore said. You are exceptional, Tom, exceptionally talented and exceptionally damaged. The school can address the talent. The damage requires something the school cannot provide. What? Tom said. A person, Dumbledore said. A person who takes responsibility for you, who watches over you, who does not leave when things become difficult. Nobody does that, Tom said. The sentence was flat. Not self-pitying. Statements of fact from Tom Riddle were never self-pitying. They were empirical. He had observed the world. The world did not contain people who stayed. I will, Dumbledore said. Tom looked at him with the Predator's assessment. The measuring. The evaluation. Why? Tom said. Because I recognize you, Dumbledore said. I was, not unlike you. Brilliant, ambitious, drawn to power, convinced that my intelligence entitled me to things that other people's intelligence did not. And what happened? Tom said. Someone I loved died because of my arrogance, Dumbledore said. And I spent 20 years learning that intelligence without guidance produces destruction rather than greatness. You're offering to guide me, Tom said. I'm offering to raise you, Dumbledore said. Not as a teacher, as a guardian. I don't need a guardian, Tom said. No, Dumbledore said. You need a parent. But guardians are what's available, and I am what's available. Tom looked at the trophies on the floor, at the stolen things, the evidence of the power he'd been exercising without oversight, without consequence, without anyone caring enough to notice. Will you return the things? Dumbledore said. If I do, Tom said. What happens? You come with me, Dumbledore said. To Hogwarts. To my world. You learn what you can do, and you learn what you should do, and the two are not always the same. And if I don't return them, Tom said. Then you stay here, Dumbledore said. In this orphanage. With your power and your cruelty and the absolute certainty that you are cleverer than everyone, and you will be right about the cleverness and wrong about everything else. Tom, picked up the yo-yo. He looked at it, the small, bright object that had belonged to a boy named Billy Stubbs, who Tom had terrified into silence. The yo-yo was nothing. The power the taking represented was everything. He put the yo-yo on the bed. "I'll return them," Tom said. "Good," Dumbledore said. "Not because you told me to," Tom said. "Because the deal requires it. The motivation is less important than the action," Dumbledore said. For now." "For now," Tom said. "We'll work on the motivation later," Dumbledore said. Dumbledore's home. Dumbledore did not live at Hogwarts year-round. During the summers and holidays, he maintained a small house in Godric's Hollow, the village where his family had lived, where his sister had died, where the worst thing in his life had happened, and where he continued to live because Albus Dumbledore was a man who believed that running from the location of your mistakes was a form of cowardice. The house was eccentric. Books covered every surface. Magical instruments occupied shelves and tables and the floor. A phoenix named Fawkes roosted in the living room. The kitchen was functional but neglected, because Dumbledore's relationship with food was the relationship of someone who ate when reminded and who forgot otherwise. Tom arrived at the house on a Sunday in August. He carried a single suitcase, the orphanage suitcase, containing the orphanage clothes, containing nothing that was his, because nothing in Tom's life was his. "This is your room," Dumbledore said, opening the door to a bedroom on the second floor. The room was small but clean, with a bed and a desk and a window overlooking the garden. "It's small," Tom said. "It's yours," Dumbledore said. Tom looked at the room, at the bed, at the desk, at the window. "Mine," Tom said. "Yours," Dumbledore said. The word, the concept of ownership that was not theft, of possession that was given rather than taken, produced something on Tom's face that Dumbledore had not yet seen. Not warmth, not gratitude. Something more fundamental, the recognition that a thing could be his without someone else losing it. Tom put his suitcase on the bed. "Rules," Tom said. "I beg your pardon?" Dumbledore said. "What are the rules?" Tom said. "At the orphanage there were rules. Don't steal, don't hurt the other children, don't do the things I can do. The rules here are simpler," Dumbledore said. "There is one rule." "One?" Tom said. "Don't lie to me," Dumbledore said. "About anything. Ever you may refuse to answer a question. Refusal is a right. But if you choose to answer, the answer must be true." "Why that rule?" Tom said. "Because I cannot help you if I don't know what's happening inside you," Dumbledore said. "And I cannot know what's happening inside you if you lie." "Everyone lies," Tom said. "Not to me," Dumbledore said. "Not in this house. And if I break the rule," Tom said. "Then we discuss it," Dumbledore said. "Discussion, not punishment." "I am not going to punish you, Tom. Punishment is the tool of people who cannot teach." Tom processed this. The processing was visible, the analytical mind, running the variables, evaluating the terms of the arrangement. "One rule," Tom said. "Don't lie." "One rule," Dumbledore said. "I can work with that," Tom said. "I thought you might," Dumbledore said. The first summer, the summer before Hogwarts, August and September of 1938, was the most important period of Tom Riddle's life, and it looked, from the outside, like nothing. Dumbledore and Tom ate meals together. This was the first component, the shared meals, the sitting across from each other, the domestic proximity that the orphanage had never provided because the orphanage fed 60 children at long tables and the feeding was institutional rather than personal. Dumbledore cooked. Badly, Dumbledore's cooking was the cooking of a man who understood the theory of food preparation without grasping its practice. The eggs were either undercooked or burned. The toast was either white or charcoal. The tea was the only thing Dumbledore made well, and even the tea was eccentric, flavoured with lemon drops, which was a Dumbledore affectation that Tom found bizarre. "This is not how you make tea," Tom said on the third morning. "It is how I make tea," Dumbledore said. "Lemon drops are sweets," Tom said. "Sweets do not belong in tea. Sweets belong wherever they bring joy," Dumbledore said. "That's not a principle," Tom said. "That's an indulgence." "Indulgence is a principle," Dumbledore said. "The principle that pleasure has value. The orphanage did not teach you this. The orphanage taught me that pleasure was for other people," Tom said. "The orphanage was wrong," Dumbledore said, "about many things, including tea." Tom drank the tea with the lemon drops. He did not enjoy it. Tom's relationship with enjoyment was the relationship of someone who had never been taught to recognize it and who therefore treated it with suspicion. But he drank it because Dumbledore had made it, and because the drinking was part of the arrangement, and because somewhere in the place where Tom kept the things he didn't understand, the drinking was not unpleasant. They walked. This was the second component. Walks through Godric's Hollow, through the village, through the countryside. Dumbledore walked as he did everything, at his own pace, with frequent stops to examine interesting things: sour, a cloud formation, a muggle postbox that Dumbledore found architecturally fascinating for reasons Tom couldn't fathom. "Why are we walking?" Tom said. "Because walking is good," Dumbledore said. "Good for what?" Tom said. "Good for thinking," Dumbledore said, "and good for being in the world rather than inside your own head." "I prefer being inside my own head," Tom said. "I know," Dumbledore said. "That's why we're walking." The walks produced conversations. The conversations were not lessons or lectures or the didactic instruction that the word teacher implied. Conversations. The back and forth of two minds engaging with each other, one of which was 57 and wise and haunted by regret, and the other of which was 11 and brilliant and haunted by nothing, because haunting required emotional connection, and Tom had not yet developed the capacity for it. "Tell me about the cave," Dumbledore said on a walk in the second week. Tom stopped. The stopping was the first emotional response Dumbledore had seen from him, the involuntary arrest of movement that indicated the question had reached something underneath the surface. "Mrs. Cole told you," Tom said. "She told me you took 2 children to a cave by the sea," Dumbledore said, "and that they were never the same afterward." "They were fine," Tom said. "They were not fine," Dumbledore said. "They were terrified. Amy Benson still can't sleep with the lights off." "That's weakness," Tom said. "That's damage," Dumbledore said. "Done by you. To children who were smaller and weaker and who couldn't defend themselves. They were annoying," Tom said. "Being annoying is not a crime that warrants torture," Dumbledore said. "I didn't torture them," Tom said. "What did you do?" Dumbledore said. Tom was quiet. The quiet was the Tom quiet, not the quiet of shame, but the quiet of calculation. The calculation of whether to answer, whether the one rule arrangement don't I applied to things that had happened before the arrangement, whether truth was strategically advisable. "I showed them what I could do," Tom said. "I made things move, made the cave dark, made sounds. I wanted them to be afraid." "Why?" Dumbledore said. "Because afraid people do what you tell them," Tom said. "And what did you tell them to do?" Dumbledore said. "Nothing," Tom said. "I just wanted them to know I could." Dumbledore walked in silence for a minute. The silence was not the silence of anger or judgment, it was the processing silence. The silence of a man who was hearing the truth about a child's capacity for cruelty, and who was choosing, very deliberately, how to respond. "You wanted power," Dumbledore said. "Yes," Tom said. "And the power you wanted was the power to make people afraid," Dumbledore said. "It's the only power that works," Tom said. "It is a power," Dumbledore said. "It is not the only one. And it is the least durable." "What do you mean?" Tom said. "Fear works in the moment," Dumbledore said. Fear keeps people compliant while you're watching. The moment you stop watching, fear becomes resentment. Resentment becomes resistance. Resistance becomes opposition. The power of fear has an expiration date. Then, what power lasts? Tom said. Respect, Dumbledore said. Trust. The power of being someone that other people choose to follow because they believe in you, not because they're afraid of you. People don't choose to follow people they trust, Tom said. People choose to follow people who are strong. Strength and trust are not mutually exclusive, Dumbledore said. In my experience they are, Tom said. Your experience, Dumbledore said, is limited to an orphanage. The orphanage's rules apply to the orphanage. The world has different rules. What rules? Tom said. Rules I'm going to teach you, Dumbledore said. If you'll let me. I don't need rules, Tom said. No, Dumbledore said. You need understanding. Rules are how understanding begins. Tom looked at Dumbledore. The Predator's assessment was still there, still running, still measuring, but alongside it was something Dumbledore hadn't seen before. Curiosity, the genuine, non-strategic. What does this person know curiosity of a child who had met an adult who didn't flinch from the truth about the cave? Tell me the rules, Tom said. Later, Dumbledore said. First, finish your walk. I hate walking, Tom said. I know, Dumbledore said. Walk anyway. Tom walked. Hogwarts Year 1. Tom Riddle arrived at Hogwarts on September 1st, 1938, and the school's reaction was the reaction of several hundred people encountering someone they couldn't categorize. He was brilliant. This was obvious from the first day. The magical aptitude, the speed of learning, the casual, effortless quality of a child who had been doing wandless magic since he was 6 and who found wanded magic, if anything, less interesting because it was less challenging. He was cold. This was also obvious. The absence of warmth, the measuring quality of his attention, evaluating people as resources rather than engaging with them as equals. The coldness was not malicious in the way that cruelty was malicious. It was structural. The architecture of a person who had not been taught that other people were real in the way that he was real. He was sorted into Slytherin. This was expected. The ambition, the resourcefulness, the preference for achievement over principle. Dumbledore had anticipated it and had not attempted to influence it, because Dumbledore understood that the sorting was not the problem. The sorting put Tom where his qualities would be valued. The problem was ensuring that the valuing didn't become an endorsement of the quality's worst expressions. Slytherin, Dumbledore said, at the staff table, watching Tom walk to the green and silver table. You're surprised? Said Armando Dippet, the headmaster. I'm concerned, Dumbledore said. Slytherin will validate his ambition. Ambition without direction is volatile. All 11-year-olds are volatile, Dippet said. Not like this one, Dumbledore said. The first year was the year of testing. Tom tested everything. The boundaries of the school, the limits of the teachers, the extent of Dumbledore's commitment to the Guardian arrangement. The testing was not defiance for its own sake. It was the systematic evaluation of a system by someone whose survival had depended on understanding how systems worked and where the weaknesses were. He tested Dumbledore most of all. I don't want to come home for Christmas, Tom said. November, the first test. Would Dumbledore force the issue? The choice is yours, Dumbledore said. The house will be there if you change your mind. Tom stayed at Hogwarts for Christmas. He was one of 3 students who remained. The others were a Hufflepuff whose parents were abroad and a Gryffindor who was avoiding a family argument. The 3 of them ate Christmas dinner in the Great Hall with the staff, and the dinner was festive as institutional celebrations were festive, bright, orchestrated, and hollow. Tom came home for Easter. He didn't announce the decision. He simply appeared at the house in Godric's Hollow with his trunk, standing in the entrance hall with the expression of someone who was trying to look as if he hadn't chosen to be here. Welcome home, Dumbledore said. It's not home, Tom said. It's your house. It's your house too, Dumbledore said. Houses aren't homes, Tom said. They can be, Dumbledore said, with time. Time doesn't fix things, Tom said. Time fixes some things, Dumbledore said. Tea? With the lemon drops, Tom said. And then? Because the sentence had revealed more than he'd intended. Because there's nothing else. Of course, Dumbledore said. Because there's nothing else. He made the tea. Tom sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Dumbledore ate breakfast, the table that was too small and too cluttered, and that was, despite everything, the only table in the world where someone had sat across from Tom Riddle and asked him about his day. How was term? Dumbledore said. Educational? Tom said. Learn anything? Dumbledore said. Everything, Tom said. The teachers are competent. The library is excellent. The students are tolerable. Tolerable is high praise from you, Dumbledore said. It's the maximum available, Tom said. Dumbledore smiled. The Dumbledore smile. The one that said I see you without saying it. The one that acknowledged the humour in Tom's deadpan delivery without forcing Tom to acknowledge that the delivery had been intentionally humorous. Tell me about the tolerable students, Dumbledore said. There's a boy named Abraxas Malfoy, Tom said. Pure blood. Wealthy, intelligent but lazy. He follows me. Follows you how? Dumbledore said. Seeks my company, Tom said. Asks my opinions. Defers to me in conversations. And you enjoy this, Dumbledore said. I find it useful, Tom said. There is a difference between useful and enjoyable, Dumbledore said. Do you know which one you're experiencing? Tom considered this. Useful? Only useful? Dumbledore said. People aren't enjoyable, Tom said. People are functional. They serve purposes. People can also be friends, Dumbledore said. Friends are people who serve emotional purposes, Tom said. The function is the same. The category is different. That's a very clinical description of friendship, Dumbledore said. I'm a very clinical person, Tom said. You're 11, Dumbledore said. 11-year-olds can be clinical, Tom said. They can, Dumbledore said. They shouldn't have to be. Tom drank his tea. The lemon drops dissolved. The kitchen was warm and cluttered, and Dumbledore was sitting across from him with the half-moon spectacles and the patient, attentive presence of someone who was not going anywhere. The cave, Tom said. What about it? Dumbledore said. You haven't mentioned it since the walk, Tom said. At the orphanage they would have mentioned it every day. I'm not the orphanage, Dumbledore said. Why haven't you mentioned it? Tom said. Because you know what you did, Dumbledore said, and you know it was wrong. My repeating it doesn't add to your knowledge. I don't know that it was wrong, Tom said. The statement was honest, the one-rule arrangement, producing the truth. I know you think it was wrong. I know the children were frightened. I don't feel that it was wrong. I know, Dumbledore said, and that is the thing we're going to work on. The feeling? Tom said. The capacity to understand why other people's fear is not your right to cause, Dumbledore said. You can teach that? Tom said. I can try, Dumbledore said. It may be the hardest thing I've ever attempted. Why? Tom said. Because the capacity for empathy is usually developed through experience, Dumbledore said. Through being loved. Through being hurt. Through the accumulated experience of living among people who treat your feelings as real. And I haven't had that experience, Tom said. You're having it now, Dumbledore said. I am treating your feelings as real, even the ones that frighten me. My feelings frighten you? Tom said. Your lack of certain feelings frightens me, Dumbledore said, and your abundance of others. Which ones? Tom said. Your pleasure in power, Dumbledore said. Your contempt for weakness. Your inability to feel remorse for the cave. Those are not feelings, Tom said. Those are assessments. They are both, Dumbledore said. And distinguishing between them is the work. I don't like work, Tom said. You love work, Dumbledore said. You love anything that challenges your intelligence. This doesn't challenge my intelligence, Tom said. This challenges your humanity, Dumbledore said, which is considerably harder. Tom finished his tea. He put the cup on the table. He looked at Dumbledore with the measuring look, the one that had been running since the orphanage, the assessment that never quite completed. You're different from the other adults, Tom said. How? Dumbledore said. You tell me the truth about myself, Tom said, even when the truth is bad. Especially when the truth is bad, Dumbledore said. That's when truth matters most. The orphanage lied, Tom said. They said I was normal. They said the things I did were imagination. They lied because the truth was frightening. I am also frightened, Dumbledore said. I choose truth over comfort. That's brave, Tom said. That's necessary, Dumbledore said. With you, brave and necessary are the same thing. The lemon drops were Dumbledore's contribution to the practice, and they outlasted everything else. Tom hated lemon drops. This was established in the first week and unchanged in the 59th year. The sweetness was too bright, too aggressive, too optimistic for a person whose palate was calibrated for bitterness. But the lemon drops were in the tea. Every morning, every visit. The dissolved sugar and the citrus and the warmth, the combination that was objectively terrible and that was subjectively the taste of the most important relationship in Tom's life. After Dumbledore died, Tom continued buying lemon drops. He purchased them from the same sweet shop in Diagon Alley that Dumbledore had patronised, a shop called Sugar Plums, where the owner knew Dumbledore by name and had been selling him lemon drops for 60 years. For Professor Dumbledore? The owner said, the first time Tom came in. For me, Tom said. You're the one who visited him, the owner said. He mentioned you. Said you hated the lemon drops but drank them anyway. He told you that, Tom said. He told everyone, the owner said. He was very proud of it. Proud of making me drink terrible tea, Tom said. Proud that you drank it, the owner said. He said it was the most important thing you did. Tom bought the lemon drops. He put them in his tea. He drank the tea that was terrible and adequate, and the taste of 40 years of being told the truth by someone who cared enough to tell it. The lemon drops were the last piece of the practice, the last physical evidence of the man who had made the practice possible, the last taste of the boundary. Tom bought lemon drops every month until he died. The owner of Sugar Plums never understood why a man who hated sweets bought them with the regularity of a ritual and the expression of someone performing an act of devotion. The owner didn't need to understand. The understanding was between two people. One of them was dead. One of them was drinking terrible tea in a flat in London, choosing every morning not to be the worst version of himself, and dissolving lemon drops in the cup. Because the dissolving was the practice, and the practice was the life, and the life was adequate. Adequate was enough. Let us know what you'd like to see next. Year 2 through 5. The slow work, the work of raising Tom Riddle, was the work of decades compressed into years. The work that should have started at birth, that should have been done by parents who loved him, that was instead being done by a middle-aged wizard who had his own darkness, and who was, by any honest assessment, not qualified for the job. Dumbledore did it anyway. Because nobody else would. Because the alternative, the watching, the monitoring, the letting it happen, had produced Voldemort in every timeline where it had been tried. Year 2. The Chamber. Tom discovered his Parseltongue ability in second year. He was in the bathroom, the girls' bathroom on the second floor, which Tom had been exploring because Tom explored everything, because the systematic mapping of Hogwarts was one of the ways he processed the school's geography into a mental architecture he could control. A snake was carved on the tap. Tom looked at it and said something, and the something was in a language he hadn't known he spoke. And the tap hissed back. Tom went to Dumbledore. This was the thing. The critical, world-altering thing. In canon, Tom had not gone to Dumbledore. In canon, Tom had kept the discovery secret, had explored the Chamber of Secrets alone, had found the basilisk and the legacy of Salazar Slytherin, and had used it all as a weapon. In this timeline, Tom went to Dumbledore because the one rule arrangement don't had evolved over a year into something more than a rule. A habit. The habit of telling Dumbledore things. I can talk to snakes, Tom said. Dumbledore put down his teacup. The putting down was deliberate, the gesture of a man who was managing his reaction. Parseltongue, Dumbledore said. Is that what it's called? Tom said. It is the language of serpents, Dumbledore said. It is extremely rare. It is typically associated with the line of Salazar Slytherin. The founder of my house, Tom said. Yes, Dumbledore said. The founder of your house. Is it dark magic? Tom said. It is a magical ability, Dumbledore said. Like any ability, it can be used for dark purposes or for others. The ability itself is morally neutral. But people will think it's dark, Tom said. People will think many things about you, Tom, Dumbledore said. Some of those things will be accurate, some will not. The relevant question is not what people think, but what you do. I found something, Tom said. In the bathroom. The snake on the tap. I spoke to it, and something opened. Dumbledore went very still. The stillness of a man who had just heard the confirmation of something he'd suspected. The Chamber of Secrets, the legacy of Slytherin, the basilisk that had been hidden beneath the school for 1,000 years. Show me, Dumbledore said. They went to the bathroom together. Tom spoke to the tap. The entrance opened. Dumbledore looked into the chamber, at the tunnel, the darkness, the ancient magic. We're going down there together, Dumbledore said. Why together? Tom said. Because whatever is down there should not be encountered alone, Dumbledore said, and because I am responsible for you. They went down, Dumbledore and Tom, together into the Chamber of Secrets. The basilisk was there, enormous, ancient, sleeping in the chamber that Slytherin had built 1,000 years ago. In canon, Tom had found the basilisk and used it, had commanded it through Parseltongue to hunt the Muggle-born students, had revelled in the power, the terror, the intoxicating quality of controlling a creature that could kill with a glance. In this timeline, Tom looked at the basilisk and said, "It's magnificent. It is dangerous," Dumbledore said. "Those aren't contradictory," Tom said. "No," Dumbledore said. "They're frequently the same thing." "Can I command it?" Tom said. The question was honest. The one-rule arrangement, producing the thought that Tom would have hidden in any other context. "You can?" Dumbledore said. "The question is whether you should." "You're going to tell me I shouldn't," Tom said. "I'm going to tell you to think about why you want to," Dumbledore said. "Power," Tom said. "Control, the ability to make people afraid." "And we've discussed what the power of fear produces," Dumbledore said. "Resentment, resistance, opposition," Tom said. The expiration date. "You remembered," Dumbledore said. "I remember everything," Tom said. "Then remember this. The basilisk is a weapon. Weapons are tools. The question is not whether you can use the tool, but what using it makes you. What does using it make me?" Tom said. "The kind of person who solves problems through terror," Dumbledore said, "which is the kind of person the orphanage was making you, and the kind of person I took you from the orphanage to prevent you from becoming." Tom looked at the basilisk, at the enormous sleeping creature that responded to his voice, that would do whatever he commanded, that represented the most direct form of power he had ever encountered. "I don't want to be who the orphanage was making," Tom said. Then the basilisk stays here, Dumbledore said, sleeping, undisturbed, and if someone else finds it? Tom said. I will seal the entrance, Dumbledore said, with protections that require both Parseltongue and my authorization to open. Both of us, Tom said. Both of us, Dumbledore said, because the important decisions should not be made alone. They sealed the chamber together. Tom provided the Parseltongue component. Dumbledore provided the enchantments. The sealing was the first thing they built together, the first collaborative act, the first time Tom's unique ability was used in partnership rather than in isolation. The basilisk slept, the chamber was sealed, and Tom Riddle walked away from the most dangerous temptation of his life because a man he was learning to trust had walked into the darkness with him instead of letting him go alone. Year 3. The Gaunts. Tom's obsession with his heritage began in 3rd year, when a genealogy project in history of magic led him to the name Marvolo Gaunt. In canon, Tom had discovered his heritage alone, had traced the Slytherin line to the Gaunts, had found the family home, had eventually murdered his Muggle father and grandparents. The discovery of his heritage had been the catalyst for the transformation from Tom Riddle into Lord Voldemort, the rejection of the Muggle name, the embrace of the pure blood legacy, the conviction that his bloodline entitled him to domination. In this timeline, Tom brought the genealogy to Dumbledore. I found my family, Tom said. Tell me, Dumbledore said. My mother was Merope Gaunt, Tom said. A witch, descendant of Salazar Slytherin. She used a love potion on my father, a Muggle named Tom Riddle. Yes, Dumbledore said. He had known this, had known since before the orphanage visit, had researched the Riddle and Gaunt families as part of his preparation. He had not told Tom because the telling required context and the context required maturity, and Tom at 11 had not been ready. Tom at 13 was ready. Barely, she drugged him, Tom said. My mother drugged a Muggle, and when the drug wore off, he left. He left her pregnant, and she died giving birth to me in the orphanage. Yes, Dumbledore said. My father was a victim, Tom said. Yes, Dumbledore said. And my mother was? Tom stopped. The stopping was not calculation. It was something Dumbledore had never seen from Tom, the struggle to name an emotion that he didn't have a word for. Your mother was desperate, Dumbledore said, lonely, abused by her father and brother, uneducated, isolated and possessed of a love, or what she believed was love, that she didn't know how to express except through the only tool available to her. The love potion, Tom said. The love potion, Dumbledore said. That's not love, Tom said. No, Dumbledore said. It isn't. Is that why Tom stopped again? The second stop. 2 stoppings in one conversation was unprecedented. Why you what? Dumbledore said. Gently, more gently than Tom usually received, because the gentleness was required. Is that why I can't? Tom's jaw worked. The analytical mind was running, but the analysis was failing, because the thing being analysed was internal, and the internal was the territory where Tom's analysis broke down. Other people feel things. Warmth, attachment, I watch them and I see it and I can't. You're asking whether your mother's use of a love potion affected your capacity to feel love, Dumbledore said. Yes, Tom said. I don't know, Dumbledore said. Tom looked at him. The Predator's assessment was gone, replaced, for a moment, by something rawer. The face of a 13-year-old boy asking the most important question of his life and being told that the answer was unknown. There is a theory, Dumbledore said, that children conceived under the influence of a love potion are unable to experience love. I have studied this theory. The evidence is inconclusive. Inconclusive, Tom said, meaning the theory may be true, Dumbledore said. Or it may not. The evidence does not distinguish between inability and inexperience. What's the difference? Tom said. Inability means you cannot feel love regardless of your circumstances, Dumbledore said. Inexperience means you have not felt love because you have not been in circumstances that produce it. The orphanage, Tom said. The orphanage did not produce love, Dumbledore said, but that doesn't mean you're incapable of it. It may mean you've never encountered conditions where it could develop. Have the conditions changed? Tom said. I'm trying to create them, Dumbledore said. The tea, the walks, the house, the rule, all of it is an attempt to create conditions where something like love can develop. Something like love, Tom said. I won't promise you love, Dumbledore said. I'll promise you conditions. What grows in the conditions is, we'll see. That's not very reassuring, Tom said. Reassurance is not my objective, Dumbledore said. Truth is. Tom sat with this, with the truth that his mother had drugged his father, that his capacity for love was uncertain, that the man sitting across from him was trying to create conditions for something that might be impossible. I want to visit them, Tom said. The Gaunts. The Gaunts are gone, Dumbledore said. Morphin is in Azkaban. Marvolo is dead. The house is empty. And my father? Tom said. The Muggle. Your father is alive, Dumbledore said, in Little Hangleton. I want to see him, Tom said. Why? Dumbledore said. Because he's my father, Tom said, and because I want to know if he's as weak as I think he is. You want to judge him, Dumbledore said. I want to understand him, Tom said. Judgment may follow. Dumbledore took Tom to Little Hangleton, not alone. Together they stood on the hill above the Riddle house, the grand house, the wealthy house, the house where Tom Riddle Sr. lived with his parents in the comfort that his wealth provided, and that he had never shared with the witch who loved him or the child she bore. Tom looked at the house, at the evidence of his father's life, the life that had continued after the love potion wore off, the life that had not included Tom, the life that represented everything Tom had been denied. In canon, this moment produced murder. The fury, the sense of betrayal, the hatred of the Muggle who had abandoned his witch mother, all of it had crystallized into violence. Tom Riddle had gone to the house and killed his father and grandparents and used the deaths to make a Horcrux. In this timeline, the fury was there. Tom felt it, the cold, analytical, world-reshaping fury of someone who was looking at the person responsible for his abandonment. I want to hurt him, Tom said. I know, Dumbledore said. Not kill him, Tom said. Hurt him. Make him understand what he did. What did he do? Dumbledore said. He left, Tom said. He left my mother and he left me. He left a woman who had drugged him, Dumbledore said. He was a victim, Tom. He was a coward, Tom said. He was human, Dumbledore said. Flawed, frightened, ordinary. I hate ordinary, Tom said. I know, Dumbledore said. The hatred of the ordinary is the hatred of the part of yourself that comes from him. Tom looked at the house for a long time, at the ordinary life of the ordinary man who was his biological father and who represented everything Tom despised: weakness, cowardice, the inability to be extraordinary. Can we leave? Tom said. Yes, Dumbledore said. I'm not going to hurt him, Tom said. Not because you told me not to. Because hurting him would make me like the orphanage, solving problems through fear. That's correct, Dumbledore said. I still hate him, Tom said. That's honest, Dumbledore said. The hatred doesn't go away just because I don't act on it, Tom said. No, Dumbledore said. The hatred stays. What changes is what you do with it. What do I do with it? Tom said. You carry it, Dumbledore said. You carry the hatred and you choose, every day, not to let it choose for you. Every day, Tom said. That's exhausting. It is, Dumbledore said. Welcome to being human. I thought being human was supposed to be enjoyable, Tom said. Whoever told you that, Dumbledore said, was lying. Tom almost smiled. The almost was visible, the fracture in the controlled surface. The moment where the boy underneath the assessment was visible, Dumbledore saw it. Dumbledore always saw it. They went home. To the house in Godric's Hollow, to the kitchen table with the lemon drop tea, to the arrangement that was not a family but that was the closest thing either of them had to one. Year 5. The darkness, the dark arts were the temptation that never stopped. Tom was brilliant at dark magic. This was the truth that Dumbledore could not change. The raw aptitude, the natural affinity, how Tom's magical ability responded to dark spells with an ease and fluency that his light magic, while excellent, never matched. Tom was a Ferrari engine in a landscape of bicycles, and the dark arts were the road the Ferrari was built for. I want to study the unforgivables, Tom said, in 5th year. Absolutely not, Dumbledore said. The Defense Against the Dark Arts curriculum includes theoretical knowledge of theoretical knowledge, Dumbledore said. Not practice. You can't defend against something you don't understand, Tom said. You understand more than enough, Dumbledore said. Your understanding of dark magic exceeds that of most adult wizards. Further study is not education. It is indulgence. Indulgence is a principle, Tom said. You taught me that. Tea with lemon drops. That was about pleasure, Dumbledore said. This is about power. The two are different, and you know it. I'm not going to hurt anyone with the knowledge, Tom said. I believe you, Dumbledore said. That is not the concern. Then what is the concern? Tom said. The concern is what the knowledge does to you, Dumbledore said, not what you do with the knowledge. The Unforgivables are not merely powerful spells. They are spells that require specific emotional states to cast. The Killing Curse requires genuine intent to kill. The Cruciatus requires genuine desire to cause pain. The Imperious requires genuine desire to control. I have all of those, Tom said. The sentence sat in the kitchen. Honest, devastating, the truth of a 15-year-old who had just said, without flinching, that he possessed the genuine desire to kill, to cause pain, and to control. I know you do, Dumbledore said. That is precisely why you will not practice them. Because I'd be good at them, Tom said. Because you'd be too good at them, Dumbledore said, and being too good at something that requires the desire to kill is not a skill, it is a diagnosis. Tom was quiet. I'm not ill, Tom said. You're not ill, Dumbledore said. You are a person with powerful impulses and extraordinary capability. The combination is dangerous. And the responsible response to danger is not to pretend it doesn't exist, but to manage it. You're managing me, Tom said. I'm raising you, Dumbledore said. Management is a component. I don't like being managed, Tom said. Nobody does, Dumbledore said. That's why it's important. The Unforgivables conversation was the hardest conversation of the Guardian arrangement. Not because of what Tom asked. The asking was honest, and the honesty was the arrangement's greatest success. Because of what Tom revealed, that underneath the improvement, underneath the tea and the walks and the 3 years of daily work, the fundamental desires were still there. The desire for power, the desire to cause fear, the desire to control. Dumbledore did not pretend the desires weren't there. Pretending was the one thing the arrangement could not accommodate. You have darkness in you, Dumbledore said. This is a fact, not a judgment, a fact. The darkness exists. The question is not whether you have it, but what you do with it. What did you do with yours? Tom said. I had a darkness of my own, Dumbledore said. The desire for power, for control, for greatness, as I defined it at your age. And, Tom said, and my sister died because of it, Dumbledore said. The darkness produced ambition. The ambition produced a plan. The plan produced a duel. The duel killed Ariana. Your sister, Tom said. My sister, Dumbledore said. 14 years old, killed by a curse that may have been mine. May have been, Tom said. I don't know, Dumbledore said. 3 wands were firing. Mine, my brother's, and someone else's. I will never know which curse killed her. And the not knowing is the punishment. Not the guilt, Tom said. The guilt is the consequence, Dumbledore said. The not knowing is the punishment. Because if I knew it was my curse, I could hate myself specifically. Not knowing means I hate myself generally, which is worse. Tom processed this. The analytical mind, running Dumbledore's confession the way it ran everything, but running it differently. Because the confession was not data. It was the inner life of the person who had been sitting across from Tom for 3 years making lemon drop tea and telling him the truth. You told me this because you want me to know the cost, Tom said. I told you because you asked, Dumbledore said. And because you want me to be afraid of the darkness, Tom said. I want you to respect it, Dumbledore said. Fear is the wrong response. Respect is the correct one. The darkness is part of you. You can't remove it. You can learn to live with it. The way you live with yours, Tom said. The way I try, Dumbledore said. Living with darkness is not a skill you master. It is a practice you maintain. A practice, Tom said. Every day, Dumbledore said. Like the tea, Tom said. Like the tea, Dumbledore said. After Hogwarts, what Tom became, Tom Riddle graduated from Hogwarts with the highest marks in the school's history. 7 outstanding NEWT's prefect. Head boy. The most talented student the staff had seen in a generation. In canon, he became Lord Voldemort. The graduation was the launch pad, Borgin and Burke's, the artifact collection, the Horcruxes, the systematic construction of a Dark Lord's identity from the wreckage of an orphan's fury. In this timeline, Tom became Tom, not Lord Voldemort, not a Dark Lord, not hero, saint, or redeemed person. Tom Riddle, who was brilliant and cold and difficult, and who had spent 7 years being raised by a man who refused to let him become the worst version of himself. He went into magical research. This was Dumbledore's suggestion, not a command, because commands didn't work with Tom, but a suggestion that aligned with Tom's intellectual vanity. You are the most talented magical mind of your generation, Dumbledore said. The question is whether you use that mind to dominate or to discover. Discovery is a form of domination, Tom said. Domination of ignorance. That's an interesting way to frame it, Dumbledore said. And also the only framing that makes research palatable to your ego. My ego is proportional to my ability, Tom said. Your ego is proportional to your insecurity, Dumbledore said. Which is considerable. I'm not insecure, Tom said. Everyone is insecure, Dumbledore said. The difference is where the insecurity lives. Tom's research was in magical theory, the fundamental principles of how magic worked, the architecture of spells, the relationship between intent and effect. The research was brilliant, because Tom was brilliant. It was also cold, precise, and devoid of the warmth that characterized most magical scholarship, because Tom was cold, precise, and devoid of warmth. He published. He was recognized. He was appointed to the Department of Mysteries at 23, the youngest unspeakable in the department's history, recruited because his talent was undeniable, and because the Department of Mysteries valued talent above personality, which was the only institutional environment where Tom's personality was not a liability. He lived alone. This was, expected, Tom's capacity for cohabitation was limited. The years with Dumbledore had taught him to tolerate proximity but not to seek it. He maintained a flat in London that was clean, organised, and devoid of personal artefacts. Because Tom did not have personal artefacts. Tom had work. He visited Dumbledore. This was the unexpected part, the part that neither of them had predicted. Once a month, sometimes more, Tom appeared at the house in Godric's Hollow and sat at the kitchen table and drank the lemon drop tea and talked. The department is running a project on temporal magic, Tom said. The theoretical framework is flawed. Have you told them? Dumbledore said. I've corrected the framework, Tom said. They're using my corrections without crediting me. That happens in institutions, Dumbledore said. It shouldn't, Tom said. Credit should be proportional to contribution. In a perfect world, Dumbledore said. The world is not perfect. The world is improvable, Tom said. Improvable is different from perfectible, Dumbledore said. I know the difference, Tom said. The perfectible is the enemy of the improvable. When did you learn that? Dumbledore said. When you served me burned eggs and said they were adequate, Tom said. The eggs were adequate, Dumbledore said. The eggs were terrible, Tom said. Adequate and terrible are not mutually exclusive, Dumbledore said. Tom stopped. The stopping was not the old stopping, not the calculation or the struggle. It was the stopping of someone who had been caught off guard by humour. That's very Dumbledore. I am very Dumbledore, Dumbledore said. I know, Tom said. I've spent 7 years living with you. And 3 years visiting, Dumbledore said. 10 years total. Is that significant? Tom said. All time is significant, Dumbledore said. That's philosophical and unhelpful, Tom said. I specialise in philosophical and unhelpful, Dumbledore said. Tom drank his tea. The lemon drops dissolved. The kitchen was warm. The conversation was ordinary. The completely unremarkable exchange of two people who had been in each other's lives for a decade and who had developed, through the accumulation of tea and walks and honest conversations, something that looked like connection. Not love. Tom did not love Dumbledore. The question of whether Tom could love, the love potion question, the nature versus nurture question, remained unanswered. What Tom had instead was attachment, the specific, chosen, maintained attachment of a person who went to a particular house once a month because the going was necessary in the human sense. Dumbledore understood this. Dumbledore understood it as the thing it was, the maximum that Tom was capable of. The maximum was not love. The maximum was, I choose to be here, with you, drinking terrible tea, because the being here is the thing that keeps me from becoming the thing we both know I could become. You're my boundary, Tom said once, in his 20s. In the kitchen, without context or preamble, because Tom's emotional expressions arrived like weather, suddenly, without warning, and impossible to predict. I beg your pardon? Dumbledore said. My boundary, Tom said. The line between what I am and what I could become. You are the line. That is a great deal of responsibility to place on a person, Dumbledore said. I know, Tom said. Can you handle it? I've been handling it since you were 11, Dumbledore said. Are you tired? Tom said. Constantly, Dumbledore said. And the tea helps. The tea is terrible, Tom said. The tea is adequate, Dumbledore said. Adequate and terrible, Tom said. As established. This was the relationship. Something less than friendship. Something more than tolerance. Connection, the specific, chosen, maintained, lemon drop flavoured connection between a man who had darkness in him and a man who had decided that the darkness was manageable if it was not alone. What didn't happen? Because Tom Riddle did not become Lord Voldemort, the following things did not happen. The Death Eaters did not form. The political movement that had united pure-blood supremacists under a single charismatic leader did not exist. because the charismatic leader was in the Department of Mysteries publishing papers on magical theory rather than recruiting followers in Nocturne Alley. The First Wizarding War did not happen. The conflict that had consumed the 1970s, the murders, the terror, the Order of the Phoenix, did not occur, because the person who would have started it was drinking tea once a month in Godric's Hollow. The Longbottoms were not tortured, the Potters were not murdered, the Bones family was not destroyed, Marlene McKinnon was not killed, the Pruitt brothers did not die in combat. The litany of deaths that the First War had produced, the catalogue of loss that had shaped the wizarding world for decades, did not happen. Sirius Black did not go to Azkaban. There was no betrayal, because there was nothing to betray. Peter Pettigrew did not become a spy, because there was no one to spy for. Remus Lupin did not spend a decade in poverty and isolation, because the war that had destroyed the Marauders' lives did not occur. Harry Potter was born in 1980 to James Potter and Lily Evans, who married in 1978, in this timeline as in the other. Harry grew up in Godric's Hollow, with parents who were alive, with a godfather who was free, with a childhood that was not defined by a scar or a prophecy, or the murder of his parents. Neville Longbottom was born to Frank and Alice Longbottom, who were alive, who were auras, who raised their son in the house in Yorkshire, with the greenhouse where Neville learned to love plants. The world was different. Not perfect, the pure blood ideology existed with or without Voldemort, and the institutional prejudices of the wizarding world persisted. But different. The absence of a war was a different kind of world, quieter, less traumatized, less defined by the binary of dark and light that the war had created. And Tom Riddle sat in his flat in London working on magical theory, visiting Dumbledore once a month, carrying the darkness that had not been eliminated but had been given banks. The river was the same. The damage it did was different. The darkness remained. This was the thing that the story could not pretend didn't exist. The darkness in Tom Riddle was permanent. Dumbledore's raising had not removed it. The tea and the walks and the honest conversations and the chamber ceiling and the 10 years of daily grinding patient work had not eliminated the fundamental qualities that made Tom Riddle dangerous. He still wanted power. The desire was managed, channeled into research rather than domination, but it was there. The hunger for control, for authority, for the intoxicating quality of being the most important person in any room. He still despised weakness. This was the hardest quality to manage, because contempt for weakness was not an emotion Tom could suppress through practice. It was architectural, built into his personality the way the Parseltongue was built into his magic. He looked at ordinary people and felt the contempt automatically, and the managing of the contempt was a daily, conscious, exhausting act of will. He still could not love. The love potion question remained unanswered. Tom was never sure whether his emotional limitations were nature the love potion, the bloodline, or nurture the orphanage, the damage. What he knew was that the thing other people called love, the warmth, the connection, the willingness to sacrifice was not available to him. What was available was the attachment, the boundary, the lemon drop tea. Am I good? Tom asked Dumbledore, at 30. The question arrived in the kitchen, without context, in the Tom manner, suddenly, without warning, from a depth that the surface didn't advertise. Define good, Dumbledore said. You know what I mean, Tom said. I know what you're asking, Dumbledore said. You're asking whether the raising worked, whether the 10 years of tea and walks and honest conversations produced a person who is good. Yes, Tom said. The answer is no, Dumbledore said. Tom looked at him. You are not good, Dumbledore said. Not by the conventional definition. You are not warm. You are not kind. You do not feel empathy naturally, and you do not love, and you despise weakness, and you would, if the conditions were right, be capable of terrible things. Then what am I? Tom said. You are managed, Dumbledore said. You are a person whose worst qualities are managed by a combination of external structures, the attachment to me, the work, the habits, and internal discipline. The management is effective. The management is also fragile. Fragile how? Tom said. If the structures failed, Dumbledore said. If I died. If the work ended. If the habits were disrupted. The qualities underneath the management are still there, Tom. They have always been there. So I'm a bomb that hasn't gone off, Tom said. You're a person who has chosen every day for 20 years not to detonate, Dumbledore said. The choosing is the achievement. The choosing is the thing that makes you not good, but not bad. Not good and not bad, Tom said. What's the word for that? Human, Dumbledore said. I've never felt human, Tom said. I know, Dumbledore said. And the not feeling human is the thing that makes you most dangerous. Because people who don't feel human don't apply human rules to themselves. I apply your rules, Tom said. My rules are not enough, Dumbledore said. Eventually, you will need to develop your own. My own rules, Tom said. Your own reasons not to detonate, Dumbledore said. Because I will not be here forever, Tom. And when I'm gone, you will need to be your own boundary. Tom sat with this. With the honesty of a man who had spent 20 years telling him the truth, and who was now telling him the hardest truth of all, that the management was temporary, and the managed person would eventually have to manage himself. Can I do that? Tom said. I don't know, Dumbledore said. I hope so. Hope is not very Dumbledore, Tom said. Hope is very Dumbledore, Dumbledore said. Hope is all I've ever had. Dumbledore's cost. Raising Tom Riddle cost Dumbledore more than anyone knew. Not the time, though the time was considerable. 10 years of daily involvement from the orphanage visit to Tom's graduation. 3 decades of monthly visits, of maintaining the connection, of being the boundary. The cost was emotional. The cost was the specific, grinding, ongoing awareness that the person you had raised and invested in and cared for was, underneath the management, still capable of becoming the worst thing the wizarding world had ever produced. Dumbledore lived with this awareness every day. The awareness that Tom's goodness, such as it was not intrinsic, but maintained. That the maintenance required Dumbledore's presence, Dumbledore's honesty, Dumbledore's willingness to sit across a kitchen table and tell an orphan the truth about himself. The awareness was exhausting. You look tired, Minerva McGonagall said at a staff meeting in 1960. Dumbledore was 67. He looked older. I am tired, Dumbledore said. Is it the Riddle boy? Minerva said. She knew about the arrangement, not the details, but the broad strokes. Everyone at Hogwarts knew that Dumbledore had a ward, that the ward was brilliant and difficult, that the relationship consumed Dumbledore's personal life in a way that nothing else did. Tom is not a boy, Dumbledore said. Tom is 33, and he is the most important thing I have ever done. More important than Hogwarts? Minerva said. More important than everything, Dumbledore said. Because the alternative, the thing Tom would have become without the raising, would have been the thing that destroyed everything else. You can't know that, Minerva said. I can, Dumbledore said. I saw it in the orphanage. At 11. The capacity for it was already there, fully formed, waiting for the circumstances that would activate it. I chose to change the circumstances. And the changing has been exhausting, Minerva said. The most important exhaustion of my life, Dumbledore said. The cost included the things Dumbledore didn't do, the relationships he didn't form, because Tom consumed the emotional bandwidth that relationships required. The career advancement he deferred, the headmastership of Hogwarts, came later in this timeline, because Dumbledore's attention was divided. the personal life he didn't have, because the personal life was Tom. You gave up everything for him, Aberforth said in one of their rare conversations. Aberforth, who had never forgiven Albus for Ariana. Aberforth, who saw in the Tom arrangement another version of the same thing, Albus sacrificing the people close to him for a project he considered more important. I gave up everything for the world, Dumbledore said. Tom was the mechanism. The world didn't ask you to raise a dark wizard, Aberforth said. The world needed someone too, Dumbledore said. And it had to be you, Aberforth said. The sentence was bitter. The bitterness of a brother who had watched Albus choose grand projects over family for 50 years. It had to be someone who understood the darkness, Dumbledore said. Someone who had it themselves, who knew how it felt and what it cost, and how close the line was between managing it and being consumed by it. You're describing yourself, Aberforth said. I'm describing the qualification, Dumbledore said. I was the only person alive who was qualified to raise Tom Riddle. Because I was the only person alive who understood what he was. Because you're the same thing, Aberforth said. Because I was the same thing, Dumbledore said. Once, and the transformation from was to am, the transformation that took me 20 years and a dead sister to achieve, that transformation is what I'm trying to give Tom in a decade. And is it working? Aberforth said. I don't know, Dumbledore said. I'll know when I die. That's morbid, Aberforth said. That's honest, Dumbledore said. The world without Voldemort. The wizarding world without Voldemort was not a perfect world. This was the thing that the story had to be honest about. The absence of one specific kind of evil did not produce the absence of all evil. Pure blood supremacy existed. The ideology that Voldemort had exploited, the belief that pure blood wizards were inherently superior to Muggleborns and half-bloods, existed with or without Voldemort, because the ideology preceded Voldemort by centuries. But the ideology without a charismatic leader was different, less organized, less violent, more diffuse. The pure blood families maintained their privilege through institutional means rather than through terror, and the institutional means produced injustice but not war. The Malfoys were influential but not dangerous. Abraxas Malfoy, Tom's schoolmate, the boy who had followed Tom, became a politician rather than a Death Eater, because there were no Death Eaters to be. Abraxas's son Lucius became a Wizengamot member, wielding the kind of soft power that pure blood families had always wielded. Financial, political, institutional. The blacks maintained their prejudices, but not their extremism. Without the war to radicalize them, Sirius Black did not run away from home, did not become an outcast, did not go to Azkaban. Sirius Black grew up in a family that was prejudiced and difficult, and that did not, in the absence of a war, produce the crisis that forced him to choose sides. The Order of the Phoenix never formed, because the Phoenix didn't need an order. Dumbledore ran Hogwarts eventually. The headmastership came in 1965, later than canon, because the Tom responsibility had delayed it. The school was the school. The world was the world. And Tom Riddle sat in his flat in London, working on magical theory, visiting Dumbledore, carrying the darkness. The world had been saved not through heroism, but through prevention. Through the unglamorous, completely unheroic act of a man making tea for a boy and telling him the truth about himself for 40 years. The question that remained. Dumbledore died in 1997. He was 116 years old. The death was natural. The natural end of a long life. The quiet departure of a man who had done what he could and who was, at the end, tired. Tom was at the house. Because Tom had known. The attachment, whatever it was, included the awareness of Dumbledore's condition, the recognition that the boundary was failing. You're dying, Tom said. I am old, Dumbledore said. Dying is what old people do. That's inadequate as a farewell, Tom said. I have never been adequate at farewells, Dumbledore said. Or at cooking. Or at most domestic things. The tea was adequate, Tom said. The tea was terrible, Dumbledore said. Adequate and terrible, Tom said. As established. They sat in the kitchen, the same table, the same chairs that had held them for 40 years, since Tom was 11 and frightened and magnificent and broken, since Dumbledore was 45 and haunted and determined and wrong about enough things to know that being right wasn't sufficient. Are you afraid? Tom said. Of dying? Dumbledore said. No, death is the next great adventure. That's one of your lines, Tom said, the philosophical ones that I've never liked. You've never liked most of my lines, Dumbledore said. I've tolerated them, Tom said. Toleration is your highest compliment, Dumbledore said. You're the only person I've tolerated for 40 years, Tom said. I know, Dumbledore said. That means something, Tom said. I know what it means, Dumbledore said. Does it count? Tom said. Whatever it is, the attachment, the boundary, the whatever, does it count? Is it enough? Enough for what? Dumbledore said. Enough to have been worth it, Tom said. The raising, the tea, the walks, the 40 years. Was it worth it? Dumbledore looked at Tom. At this man who was 60 years old and who had never committed a crime, who had never harmed another person, who had channeled the darkness that could have destroyed the world into research and attachment and lemon drop tea. At this man who was sitting across from him, asking whether the thing between them, the thing that was not love but that had done the work of love for 40 years, was enough. It was worth everything, Dumbledore said. Even the cost? Tom said. The cost was the point, Dumbledore said. The cost is how you know it mattered. That's another line, Tom said. My last one, Dumbledore said. Tom sat in the kitchen and watched Dumbledore die. The dying was quiet, the breath slowing, the blue eyes closing, the specific gentle diminishment of a person leaving the world the way everyone left the world, one breath at a time. Tom did not cry. Tom could not cry. The apparatus for crying, the emotional mechanism that produced tears, was not part of his architecture. What Tom did was worse than crying and less visible. He sat in the empty kitchen, at the table, with the cold tea and the dissolved lemon drops, and he felt the boundary dissolve. The boundary was gone. The person who had been the line between what Tom was and what Tom could become was dead. The person who had sat across the table for 40 years telling Tom the truth about himself was no longer sitting there, and Tom was alone with the darkness that had not been eliminated. That had been managed. That was, now unmanaged. Tom sat in the kitchen for 3 hours. 3 hours of the darkness suggesting things. The things it had always suggested. The power and the control and the contempt and the hunger. 3 hours of the voices that had been muted by Dumbledore's presence, speaking at full volume. And then Tom did the thing that Dumbledore had spent 40 years teaching him to do. He chose. He chose not to listen. He chose to maintain the management without the manager. He chose to be his own boundary. The choosing was not dramatic. The choosing was a man standing up in an empty kitchen, washing 2 cups, putting the lemon drops back in the jar, and walking out the door. He continued. The work, the flat, the life, without the monthly visits, without the tea, without the boundary that had been provided by someone else. He provided his own boundary. Not perfectly. The management without the manager was harder, less reliable, more prone to the failures that Dumbledore had warned about. Some days were bad. Some days the darkness was loud and the managing was inadequate, and Tom Riddle sat in his flat and felt the full weight of what he could have been, but he maintained. Day after day, year after year, the practice that Dumbledore had taught him, the daily, ongoing, never-finished practice of choosing not to be the worst version of yourself. The practice was not love. The practice was not redemption. The practice was management. The cold, analytical, Tom Riddle specific management of a person who had been raised to be better than his nature, and who was, every day, choosing to continue the effort. It was enough. Barely. On most days. Enough? This is not a redemption story. Tom Riddle was not redeemed. Redemption implies a transformation, the conversion of darkness into light, the elimination of the bad, and the installation of the good. Tom Riddle was not transformed. He was managed. Managed by a man who saw an 11-year-old orphan with stolen trophies in his wardrobe and the power to terrorize children and the brilliant, devastating potential to become the worst thing the world had ever seen, and who decided that the potential was not a sentence. The potential was a challenge. Dumbledore met the challenge. Not perfectly, not easily, with burned eggs and lemon drop tea and 40 years of sitting across a kitchen table telling a damaged person the truth about himself. The truth was, you have darkness in you. The truth was, the darkness is permanent. The truth was, the darkness is not all you are. Tom carried the darkness for 60 years, carried it through the research and the attachment and the monthly visits and the terrible tea, carried it after Dumbledore died, when the boundary was gone and the only thing standing between Tom Riddle and the worst version of himself was Tom Riddle's choice. He chose. Every day, not to be Voldemort. The choosing was not heroic. The choosing was not warm. The choosing was the cold, analytical Tom Riddle specific decision of a man who knew what he was and who decided, with the precision of a person whose precision was his defining quality, that what he was did not have to determine what he did. That was not love. That was not redemption. That was management. And management, it turned out, was enough. Barely on most days. Enough? The lemon drops were Dumbledore's contribution to the practice, and they outlasted everything else. Tom hated lemon drops. This was established in the first week and unchanged in the 59th year. The sweetness was too bright, too aggressive too, optimistic for a person whose palate was calibrated for bitterness. But the lemon drops were in the tea. Every morning. Every visit. The dissolved sugar and the citrus and the warmth, the combination that was objectively terrible and that was subjectively the taste of the most important relationship in Tom's life. After Dumbledore died, Tom continued buying lemon drops. He purchased them from the same sweet shop in Diagon Alley that Dumbledore had patronized, a shop called Sugar Plums, where the owner knew Dumbledore by name and had been selling him lemon drops for 60 years. For Professor Dumbledore? The owner said, the first time Tom came in. For me? Tom said. You're the one who visited him, the owner said. He mentioned you, said you hated the lemon drops but drank them anyway. He told you that, Tom said. He told everyone, the owner said. He was very proud of it. Proud of making me drink terrible tea, Tom said. Proud that you drank it, the owner said. He said it was the most important thing you did. Tom bought the lemon drops. He put them in his tea. He drank the tea that was terrible and adequate, and the taste of 40 years of being told the truth by someone who cared enough to tell it. The lemon drops were the last piece of the practice, the last physical evidence of the man who had made the practice possible, the last taste of the boundary. Tom bought lemon drops every month until he died. The owner of Sugar Plums never understood why a man who hated sweets bought them with the regularity of a ritual and the expression of someone performing an act of devotion. The The owner didn't need to understand. The understanding was between two people. One of them was dead. One of them was drinking terrible tea in a flat in London, choosing every morning not to be the worst version of himself, and dissolving lemon drops in the cup. Because the dissolving was the practice, and the practice was the life, and the life was adequate. Adequate was enough. Let us know what you'd like to see next. Expanded Threads, the Slug Club, and Social Navigation Professor Slughorn's Slug Club was the first social environment where Tom's managed darkness was tested against actual people. Slughorn adored Tom. This was inevitable. Slughorn collected talented students the way some people collected stamps, and Tom was the rarest stamp in the collection. The magical ability, the academic performance, the striking appearance, Tom was everything Slughorn valued, and Slughorn's valuing was visible, enthusiastic, and relentless. My boy. Slughorn said at the first Slug Club dinner, my remarkable boy. 5 outstanding OWLs predicted, and the year isn't half done. Thank you, Professor, Tom said. The voice was the public voice, smooth, polished, the version of Tom that the school saw, the version that could perform warmth without feeling it, that could deploy charm like a weapon, that had been perfected over 3 years of Slytherin social navigation. Dumbledore watched the performance. This was the thing that the raising had not eliminated, Tom's capacity for manipulation. The ability to read a room, to identify what each person wanted to hear, to deliver that thing with the precision of a marksman. The ability was Tom's most natural social skill, more natural than honesty, more comfortable than vulnerability. You're performing, Dumbledore said after the dinner. I'm socializing, Tom said. You're performing socialization, Dumbledore said. There's a difference. The difference is academic, Tom said. The result is the same. The result is that Slughorn thinks he knows you, Dumbledore said. And he doesn't. Nobody at that dinner knows you. Nobody at that dinner needs to know me, Tom said. Disagreed, Dumbledore said. The purpose of social interaction is not performance. It is connection. Connection serves no strategic purpose, Tom said. Connection serves every purpose, Dumbledore said. Connection is how you discover that other people are real. Other people are real, Tom said. I'm aware of their existence. You're aware of their existence, Dumbledore said. You're not aware of their interiority. You don't. Tom, you look at people and you see what they can do for you. You don't see who they are. Who they are is irrelevant to what they can do for me, Tom said. Who they are is the only thing that matters, Dumbledore said. Tom considered this. The consideration was genuine. When Dumbledore told Tom something, Tom considered it, because the one rule arrangement had produced a habit of trust that Tom did not extend to anyone else. I don't know how to see who people are, Tom said. I see function. I see capability. I see weakness. I don't see whatever it is you see. I see souls, Dumbledore said. That's metaphorical, Tom said. It's literal, Dumbledore said. Every person you met tonight, every student in the Slug Club, has an inner life as complex as yours. Dreams, fears, desires, memories, an entire world inside their head. I know this intellectually, Tom said. You need to know it emotionally, Dumbledore said. I don't do emotional knowledge, Tom said. I know, Dumbledore said. That's the work. The work of teaching Tom to see other people as real was the hardest component of the raising. He was not deliberately resistant to the concept. Because the capacity for seeing others as real required the emotional architecture that Tom's combination of nature, the bloodline, the love potion, and nurture had not provided. Dumbledore's approach was not theoretical. It was practical. Exposure. He introduced Tom to people whose interiority was visible, people who wore their emotions on the outside, who could not hide what they were feeling, who served as teaching materials for a student who needed to learn what emotions looked like from the outside because he couldn't feel them from the inside. Hagrid was one of these people. Rubeus Hagrid arrived at Hogwarts in Tom's third year. Hagrid was 13, enormous, emotional, and possessed of the kind of unguarded warmth that Tom found simultaneously baffling and fascinating. "He cries at everything," Tom said to Dumbledore after watching Hagrid weep over a dead spider. "He feels everything," Dumbledore said. "Hagrid's emotional response to the world is proportional to his size. That's inefficient," Tom said. "That's human," Dumbledore said. "He cried over a spider," Tom said. "A spider, Professor. The spider was alive, and now it's dead," Dumbledore said. "Hagrid is grieving the transition." "Grief over an insect is irrational," Tom said. "Grief is always irrational," Dumbledore said. "That's why it matters." "Irrationality matters?" Tom said. "Irrationality is the proof that you care about something beyond what's logical," Dumbledore said. "Logic doesn't grieve. People do." Tom watched Hagrid, not with contempt, or not only with contempt, with the analytical attention that Tom brought to everything he wanted to understand. Hagrid was a puzzle. A person who felt things at maximum volume, who had no filter between emotion and expression, who was, in Tom's assessment, the most vulnerable person Tom had ever encountered, and the most impossible to despise. Because Hagrid's openness was not weakness. It was, Tom searched for the word, courage. The courage to feel things without protection. The courage to cry over a spider in front of other children. The courage to be completely, undefendedly, relentlessly yourself. Tom did not befriend Hagrid. Tom did not befriend anyone. The word befriend implied an emotional engagement that Tom's architecture didn't support. But Tom did not bully Hagrid, which was the thing that the other timelines Tom had done deck Aragog free. Framing Hagrid for the Chamber of Secrets opening. In this timeline, Tom observed Hagrid with the clinical, analytical, almost admiring attention of someone studying a creature he couldn't understand. "You don't have to understand it," Dumbledore said. "You have to acknowledge it." "Acknowledge what?" Tom said. "That Hagrid's way of being in the world is valid," Dumbledore said. "Even if it's not yours. His way is messy," Tom said. "Yours is too clean," Dumbledore said. Grindelwald. 1945, the confrontation with Grindelwald happened in 1945 when Tom was 17. In canon, Dumbledore had faced Grindelwald alone, the legendary duel, the Elder Wand, the defeat of the darkest wizard of the century. In this timeline, the confrontation was complicated by Tom. "I'm coming with you," Tom said. "You are not," Dumbledore said. "Grindelwald is the most powerful dark wizard alive," Tom said. "You're going to face him alone." "I have faced worse things alone," Dumbledore said. "You faced me alone," Tom said. "And that took 10 years. "Grindelwald is different," Dumbledore said. "Grindelwald is the same," Tom said. "A brilliant person who chose power over connection. Sound familiar?" "That is uncomfortably accurate," Dumbledore said. "I'm not offering to fight him," Tom said. "I'm offering to be present, the way you were present for me. In the chamber. At Little Hangleton. You didn't let me face the dark things alone." Dumbledore looked at Tom. At the 17-year-old who was offering, in his clinical, non-emotional Tom Riddle way, to be the companion that Dumbledore had been for him. "You understand that Grindelwald is someone I loved," Dumbledore said. "I know," Tom said. "The confrontation will not be clean," Dumbledore said. "I don't need clean," Tom said. "I need you to survive." "Why?" Dumbledore said. "Because you're my boundary," Tom said, "and I am not ready to manage without you." Dumbledore went to face Grindelwald. Tom went with him. Not into the duel. Tom waited outside Nurmengard while Dumbledore entered. But the presence, the knowledge that someone was waiting outside, that the confrontation was not solitary, changed the duel. Dumbledore won. The Elder Wand changed hands. Grindelwald was imprisoned. Dumbledore came out of Ermengarde and Tom was sitting on the steps, reading a book on magical theory, looking as if he were waiting for a late bus rather than for the outcome of the century's most important magical confrontation. "You won," Tom said, without looking up from the book. "I did," Dumbledore said. "Good," Tom said. "I would have been very irritated if you died and I'd had to find a new boundary. Your concern is overwhelming," Dumbledore said. "My concern is adequate," Tom said. "Tea?" "Please," Dumbledore said. Tom made tea, on the steps of Ermengarde with a conjured kettle and the lemon drops he'd brought from home, because the lemon drops were the ritual, and the ritual was the thing that kept the world normal. They sat on the steps and drank terrible tea, and the day's events, the duel, the Elder Wand, the imprisonment of the man Dumbledore had loved, sat between them, unspoken but present. "He was like me," Tom said. "He was like what you could have been," Dumbledore said. "The difference being—" "You had me," Dumbledore said. "He didn't." "That's an enormous amount of weight to place on tea and walks," Tom said. "Tea and walks are enormously powerful," Dumbledore said. "Do not underestimate the transformative capacity of domestic routine." "I will never underestimate anything you tell me," Tom said. "But I reserve the right to find it absurd." "That is all I've ever asked," Dumbledore said. "The immortality question." In canon, Tom Riddle's obsession with immortality was the engine that produced Voldemort. The Horcruxes, the soul-splitting, the murders, the systematic destruction of his own humanity in pursuit of eternal life were the mechanism through which Tom Riddle became the Dark Lord. In this timeline, the obsession existed. The fear of death was fundamental to Tom. Not because he valued life, Tom's relationship with his own life was clinical rather than treasuring, but because death was the ultimate loss of control. And Tom could not tolerate loss of control. "I don't want to die," Tom said to Dumbledore at 20. The statement was delivered in the kitchen, without context, in the Tom manner. "Nobody wants to die," Dumbledore said. "That's not what I mean," Tom said. "I don't want to die ever. I want to. I've been studying. There are methods." "Horcruxes," Dumbledore said. Tom went still. "You know about Horcruxes," Tom said. "I know about everything you've been studying," Dumbledore said. "The restricted section borrowing records are available to staff." "You've been monitoring my reading," Tom said. "I've been paying attention to your interests," Dumbledore said, "which is a component of raising." "Monitoring," Tom said. "Attention," Dumbledore said. "They're the same thing with different framing," Tom said. "The framing matters," Dumbledore said. "Monitoring implies distrust. Attention implies care. The result is the same. You know I've been reading about Horcruxes," Tom said. "I know," Dumbledore said, "and I'm going to tell you why you won't make one." "You can't stop me," Tom said. "I can't," Dumbledore said. "I can, however, explain why making a Horcrux is the worst possible use of your intelligence. Because murder is wrong," Tom said. "Murder is wrong," Dumbledore said. "But that's the moral argument, and moral arguments have limited effectiveness with you. The argument that will reach you is practical." "Tell me the practical argument," Tom said. "A Horcrux requires you to split your soul," Dumbledore said. "The splitting is achieved through murder, the most extreme act of violation against another person. The soul fragment is stored in an object. The result is immortality of a kind." "That's the theory," Tom said. "What's the practical objection?" "The practical objection is that a split soul is not a whole soul," Dumbledore said. "The person who makes a Horcrux is not the person who existed before the Horcrux. The splitting diminishes you. Your capacity for thought, for complexity, for the analytical precision that is your greatest quality, all of it is reduced by the splitting." "Reduced how?" Tom said. "Reduced proportionally," Dumbledore said. "One Horcrux, you are half the person you were. 2, a third. The mathematics are simple and devastating. You're saying immortality comes at the cost of intelligence," Tom said. I'm saying immortality comes at the cost of you, Dumbledore said. The you that exists now, the mind that can solve problems that no one else can, the precision that makes your research exceptional, that you is diminished by each Horcrux. The immortal version of Tom Riddle is a lesser version, a fragment. Tom processed this. The analytical mind, the mind that Dumbledore was arguing would be diminished, ran the calculation. You're exploiting my vanity, Tom said. I'm informing your vanity, Dumbledore said. The vanity will do the rest. You think my ego will prevent me from making a Horcrux, Tom said. Your ego will prevent you from diminishing yourself, Dumbledore said. The full Tom Riddle would rather die at 120 than live forever as half of Tom Riddle. Tom considered this for a long time. You're right, Tom said. I would rather be fully myself for a limited time than be a fragment forever. That is the most human thing you've ever said, Dumbledore said. Don't ruin it, Tom said. I wouldn't dream of it, Dumbledore said. Tom, at the Ministry, what he built. Tom Riddle's career at the Department of Mysteries was the career of a genius operating within institutional constraints, which was to say it was the career of someone who found the constraints simultaneously frustrating and necessary. The frustration was Tom's natural response to limitations. He was smarter than everyone in the department. He knew this, not as arrogance but as measurement. The gap between his capability and theirs was measurable, and the measurement produced the contempt that Dumbledore had spent years teaching him to manage. My supervisor approved the wrong methodology, Tom said at a monthly visit. He was 25. Did you tell him? Dumbledore said. I told him the methodology was flawed, and he said he'd review it, Tom said. And? Dumbledore said. And he reviewed it and kept it anyway, Tom said. Because admitting the methodology was wrong would require admitting that a 25-year-old subordinate understood the subject better than a 50-year-old supervisor. Institutional politics, Dumbledore said. Institutional incompetence, Tom said. The two are frequently indistinguishable, Dumbledore said. I could solve this, Tom said, if I managed the situation differently. Managed how? Dumbledore said. I could make him understand, Tom said. The emphasis on make was slight, but Dumbledore heard it. Make, Dumbledore said. Persuade, Tom said, correcting himself. Persuade him to adopt the correct methodology. Persuade, Dumbledore said. Not imperious. I wasn't suggesting imperious, Tom said. You were suggesting compulsion, Dumbledore said. The word make carries compulsion. I was frustrated, Tom said. Frustration is normal, Dumbledore said. The impulse to compel people who frustrate you is your specific expression of frustration. I know, Tom said. The management of that impulse is the work, Dumbledore said. The work is ongoing, Tom said. The work is permanent, Dumbledore said. There is no graduation. Tom managed the supervisor situation without compulsion. He published a paper that demonstrated the correct methodology with sufficient evidence that the supervisor adopted it voluntarily. The approach was slower, harder, less satisfying than compulsion would have been. But it worked. And the working, the choosing of persuasion over compulsion, of evidence over force, was the daily practice that Dumbledore had been teaching Tom for 15 years. Tom and Harry Potter, the encounter that never mattered. Tom Riddle met Harry Potter once. It was 1991. Tom was 64. Harry was 11. They met at Hogwarts. Harry was starting school. Tom was visiting Dumbledore, and the meeting was a coincidence that the universe, in its characteristic thoroughness, arranged without either party's knowledge. Who's that? Harry said to Ron, on the way to the Great Hall. No idea, Ron said. He looks intense, Harry said. He looks like someone who's never smiled, Ron said. Tom was in the corridor, walking toward Dumbledore's office. Harry was in the corridor, walking toward dinner. They passed each other. Nothing happened. In the other timeline, this encounter would have been the meeting of nemesis and victim, of murderer and orphan, of the two people whose connection defined the wizarding world's fate. In this timeline, it was two people passing in a corridor. One of them was an 11-year-old boy with messy hair and glasses. The other was a 64-year-old man in ministry robes with dark eyes and no expression. Tom didn't notice Harry. Harry didn't notice Tom. The corridor was a corridor. The passing was a passing. This was the point. This was the entire point of 40 years of tea and walks and honest conversations. The encounter that defined the other timeline didn't happen here, not because of magic or prophecy or destiny, but because a man had raised a boy correctly. And the correctly raised boy had grown into a man who walked through corridors without needing to destroy the children in them. The mundanity was the victory. The unremarkableness was the triumph. Harry went to dinner. Tom went to Dumbledore's office. The new students look particularly small this year, Tom said. They look the same every year, Dumbledore said. You've simply gotten older. I don't get older, Tom said. I become more experienced. That's a distinction without a difference, Dumbledore said. All of my distinctions have differences, Tom said. That's why I make them. Tea? Dumbledore said. With the lemon drops, Tom said. Always with the lemon drops, Dumbledore said. Always, Tom said. What Dumbledore built. Dumbledore didn't build a hero. He didn't build a saint. He didn't build a redeemed person who could stand as evidence that love conquers all. He built a person who could sit at a kitchen table and drink tea and not destroy the world. This was the achievement. Not the brilliant career, not the magical theory papers, not the contribution to magical knowledge that Tom's research had produced. The achievement was the kitchen table. The 2 cups. The lemon drops. The 40 years of daily choosing not to be the worst version of yourself. Dumbledore built the conditions for a choice. The choice was Tom's. The choosing was Tom's. Every day for 40 years, the choosing was Tom's. And Tom chose. Not love. Tom didn't have love available. Not goodness. Tom didn't have goodness available. Something smaller. Something harder. Something that didn't have a name because the name hadn't been invented yet. The name, if it existed, would be something like managed darkness. The practice of carrying the worst parts of yourself with the awareness that the carrying required effort and that the effort was worth making. Dumbledore built the conditions. Tom did the carrying. Together they saved the world. Not through heroism, through breakfast. He was the most dangerous child in the wizarding world. He was raised by a man who knew what danger looked like because he carried his own. The raising did not fix him. The raising did not heal him. The raising did not transform the darkness into light, or the cold into warmth, or the analytical precision of a mind that assessed people as functions into the emotional connection that most people called love. The raising gave him a kitchen table. 2 cups, lemon drops, and a man who sat across from him and told him the truth for 40 years. The truth was, you have darkness. The truth was, the darkness is permanent. The truth was, the darkness is not all you are. The truth was, every day, you choose. He chose. Not love, not goodness, not redemption. Management, the cold, analytical, daily management of a person who knew what he was and who decided, with the precision that was his defining quality, that what he was did not have to determine what he did. Albus Dumbledore made tea for a monster for 40 years. The monster drank the tea. The world survived. That was enough. Barely, on most days. Enough? More threads year 4. The prefect question when Tom was made prefect in 5th year. The appointment came with a conversation that Dumbledore had anticipated for 2 years. I've been appointed prefect, Tom said. Congratulations, Dumbledore said. You don't look pleased, Tom said. I am pleased that your talent has been recognized, Dumbledore said. I am concerned about what the recognition will activate. Activate? Tom said. Authority, Dumbledore said. The prefect badge carries authority over other students. Authority is, for you, the most dangerous kind of power. More dangerous than magic? Tom said. Magic is impersonal, Dumbledore said. Authority is personal. Authority means other students must obey you, must defer to you, must recognize your position. And that's dangerous because obedience and deference are the things you crave most, Dumbledore said, and the things that are most likely to produce the person I took you from the orphanage to prevent you from becoming. Tom considered this. You think the badge will corrupt me. I think the badge will test you, Dumbledore said. The question is whether you use the authority to serve or to control. Is there a difference? Tom said. The difference is the entire point of authority, Dumbledore said. The prefect year was the test. Tom had authority over younger students, the power to assign detentions, to dock points, to enforce rules. The power was institutional rather than magical, but institutional power was, for Tom, just as intoxicating. He was fair. This was the surprising thing. Tom didn't believe in fairness as a principle, because Dumbledore had spent 4 years teaching him that fairness was strategically superior to tyranny. Fair systems produce compliance, Tom explained, when a younger Slytherin asked why Tom hadn't punished a Gryffindor more harshly. Unfair systems produce resentment. I prefer compliance. That's very practical, the Slytherin said. I am very practical, Tom said. The fairness was not emotional. The fairness was calculated. Tom treated students fairly because fair treatment produced better outcomes, not because fair treatment was morally correct. The motivation was Tom's, strategic, analytical, self-interested. The result was the same as the result of genuine fairness. Students trusted the prefect system under Tom Riddle more than under any prefect in recent memory. He's good at it, Slughorn said to Dumbledore. The students respect him. The students comply with him, Dumbledore said. Respect and compliance are different. They look the same from the outside, Slughorn said. Everything about Tom looks different from the inside than from the outside, Dumbledore said. That is the thing I am trying to change. Tom and Minerva McGonagall. Minerva McGonagall arrived at Hogwarts as a professor in 1956, when Tom was 29 and visiting Dumbledore monthly. McGonagall was formidable, precise, demanding, principled in a way that Tom found simultaneously irritating and recognizable. Her standards were high, and her tolerance for nonsense was low, and her ability to see through charm was absolute. Tom could not charm McGonagall. This was novel. Tom could charm anyone. The public Tom, the smooth Tom, the Tom who deployed social performance like a weapon, that Tom ran into McGonagall's defences and bounced. "You're very polished," McGonagall said at their first meeting. Dumbledore had introduced them in the staff room. "Thank you," Tom said. "That wasn't a compliment," McGonagall said. "Polished means I can't see what's underneath, and I prefer to see what's underneath." "Most people prefer the polished," Tom said. "I am not most people," McGonagall said. "And neither, I suspect, are you." Tom looked at McGonagall with the measuring look, the assessment that had been running since the orphanage, the evaluation that never quite completed, and McGonagall looked back with the McGonagall look, the one that said, "I've seen cleverer people than you try to manage me, and I remained unmanaged." "I think we're going to have an interesting relationship," Tom said. "I think we're going to have an honest one," McGonagall said. "Or none at all." The relationship was honest. McGonagall was one of approximately 4 people in the world who Tom could not manipulate, the others being Dumbledore, Madame Pince, and, eventually, a Department of Mysteries colleague named Saul Croker, who was too oblivious to manipulation to be vulnerable to it. Your research paper on enchantment matrices is excellent, McGonagall said years later. The methodology is impeccable and the conclusions are unavoidable. Thank you, Tom said. The acknowledgements section, however, is empty, McGonagall said. No one helped? No one contributed? No colleagues? No assistants? No Dumbledore? The work was mine, Tom said. The work was yours, McGonagall said. The ability to do the work was not. Someone taught you. Someone raised you. Someone sat across a kitchen table from you for 20 years. Acknowledgements are a social convention, Tom said. Acknowledgements are a recognition of debt, McGonagall said, and you owe Albus Dumbledore a debt that no acknowledgements section could accommodate. Tom looked at her. At this woman who had just told him, without hesitation or diplomatic softening, that his greatest weakness was his inability to acknowledge what other people had given him. I'll add an acknowledgement, Tom said. Don't add an acknowledgement because I told you to, McGonagall said. Add one because it's true. Both can be true simultaneously, Tom said. In your case, I'll take what I can get, McGonagall said. Tom added the acknowledgement. One line. The author acknowledges the ongoing intellectual support of Professor Albus Dumbledore. It was the most personal statement Tom Riddle had ever published, and it cost him something that people who expressed gratitude naturally could not have understood. The diary. Tom kept a diary. Not a Horcrux. A diary. A leather-bound journal that Dumbledore had given him at 12, after the cave conversation, after the beginning of the work. Write what you're feeling, Dumbledore had said. When you can't identify the feeling, describe the situation. The identification may come later. I don't feel things, Tom had said. Then write about the absence, Dumbledore said. The absence is also information, Tom wrote. Every day. For 40 years. The diary was the one place where Tom was completely honest. More honest than with Dumbledore, because the diary didn't respond. The diary was a mirror that reflected without commenting. The entries were clinical. This was expected. Tom's inner life, rendered in text, read like a medical report, symptoms, observations, hypotheses, conclusions, October 14th, 1939, 11 years old. Observation. The other students laughed together in the common room. I do not laugh. I do not feel the impulse to laugh. I observe the laughter the way I observe weather, as a phenomenon that occurs around me but does not include me. February 3rd, 1941, 13 years old. Observation. Dumbledore told me about my mother today. The love potion. The abandonment. I have no word for what I experienced. It was not sadness. Sadness is the word other people use. What I felt was a gap, an absence where an emotion should be. The gap is information. I do not know what it means. September 1st, 1945, 17 years old. Observation. Dumbledore has returned from Nurmengard. He defeated Grindelwald. I made tea on the steps. The tea was the ritual. The ritual is important because the ritual is the evidence that the world is still normal. I need the world to be normal because abnormality activates the darkness, and the darkness, once activated, requires significant effort to manage. December 25th, 1955, 28 years old. Observation. I spent Christmas at the house in Godric's Hollow. Dumbledore cooked a turkey. The turkey was characteristically burned. I ate it because eating what Dumbledore cooks is part of the arrangement. I did not enjoy the turkey. I did not enjoy. I found the eating of the turkey to be not unpleasant. The not unpleasantness is, in my vocabulary, the closest available approximation of enjoyment. March 15th, 1970, 43 years old. Observation. I attended a colleague's wedding today. The colleague invited me because workplace social conventions required it. I attended because declining would have been more socially costly than attending. During the ceremony, I observed the exchange of vows. The vows were promises of love and commitment and permanence. I have none of these things available to me. I have attachment. I have the boundary. I have the lemon drop tea. These are not the same as what the vows described. They are what I have. November 2nd, 1997, 70 years old. Observation: Dumbledore is dead. The boundary is gone. The darkness is loud today. I sat in the kitchen for 3 hours. The darkness suggested things. I chose not to listen. The choosing is the practice. The practice continues. The diary was the map of Tom's inner life, the cold, clinical, remarkably detailed map of a person who could not feel things the way other people felt them, but who was. Through decades of practice, learning to identify the shapes where feelings should be. The shapes were not the feelings. The shapes were the architecture that Dumbledore's raising had built around the absence. The architecture did not fill the absence. It made the absence livable. What Harry's childhood looked like. Harry James Potter was born on July 31st, 1980, to James and Lily Potter, in a world where Voldemort did not exist. He grew up in Godric's Hollow, in a house with a garden, with parents who were alive and who loved him in the messy, imperfect, completely ordinary way that alive parents loved their children. James was a good father. Not a perfect one. James's parenting style was the James Potter style, enthusiastic, occasionally reckless, heavy on Quidditch and light on homework, with the infectious energy of a man who found being alive to be a daily source of delight. Dad let me ride the broom at 30 feet, Harry told Lily, at 5. He what? Lily said. It was 20 feet, James said from behind a newspaper. 20 feet is also too high, Lily said. He was fine, James said. He's 5, Lily said. He's a natural, James said. He's 5, Lily said again. 5-year-olds do not fly at 20 feet. This 5-year-old does, James said. He's got talent. He's got a father with poor judgment, Lily said. Both things can be true, James said. Harry grew up. Ordinary, happy, the specific, unremarkable, completely unspecial happiness of a child who was loved by present parents and who did not have a scar on his forehead and who did not carry the weight of a prophecy. He went to Hogwarts at 11. He was sorted into Gryffindor. He played Quidditch Seeker, like his father. He made friends. Ron Weasley, Hermione Granger. He got into trouble, not war-level trouble, the regular kind, sneaking out after curfew, Quidditch fouls, the occasional hexed Slytherin. He had a normal school experience. This was the gift that Dumbledore's raising of Tom Riddle had given Harry Potter, normalcy. The most extraordinary gift possible. The gift of being ordinary. Harry didn't know about Tom Riddle, didn't know about the orphanage, or the darkness, or the 40 years of tea. Didn't know that his normal, happy, completely unremarkable childhood existed because a transfiguration professor had looked at an 11-year-old orphan and said, "This child is mine," and had spent 4 decades making that declaration operational. Harry ate breakfast with his parents. He played Quidditch. He fell in love with Ginny Weasley. He grew up. And the growing up was the victory. The growing up was the thing that all of it, the tea, the walks, the chamber ceiling, the Horcrux argument, the 40 years, had been for. Not Harry specifically, all of them. Every child who grew up without Voldemort, every parent who was alive, every family that was intact. The mundanity was the point, the practice after Dumbledore. Tom Riddle lived for 23 years after Dumbledore's death. 23 years of the practice without the practitioner who had designed it. The practice was: wake up, make tea, with lemon drops, sit at a table, his own table now, in his own flat, because the house in Godric's Hollow had been left to Aberforth and Aberforth had not invited Tom to continue visiting. Drink the tea. Assess the darkness. Choose not to listen. Some mornings the choosing was easy. The darkness was quiet, manageable, the background hum of a machine that was running but not activated. On these mornings, Tom went to work, published research, maintained the surface of a life that looked, from the outside, like the life of a highly functional, if peculiar, magical scholar. Some mornings, the choosing was hard. The darkness was loud, suggesting things, offering things, reminding Tom of what he was and what he could be. On these mornings, the tea took longer. The choosing required more effort. The effort was visible only to Tom, because the effort was internal, and Tom's external surface was the same regardless of what was happening underneath. "You seem distracted today," Saul Croker said on one of the hard mornings. They were colleagues at the department. Croker was the one person at work who Tom considered approximately equal in intelligence, which was the minimum threshold for Tom's attention. "I'm processing," Tom said. "Processing what?" Croker said. "Internal variables," Tom said. "That's not a thing," Croker said. "It is for me," Tom said. "You're a strange man, Riddle," Croker said. "I am a managed man," Tom said. Strange is a side effect. Croker didn't understand what Tom meant. Nobody understood what Tom meant, because nobody except Dumbledore had ever known about the darkness and the management, and Dumbledore was dead. Tom managed alone. This was the hardest part, the aloneness. The arrangement had never been about the specific tools, the tea, the walks, the conversations. The arrangement had been about the presence, the knowledge that someone was there. Someone was watching. Someone cared whether Tom chose correctly. Without the presence, the choosing was solitary. And solitary choosing was, Tom searched for the word. Not harder, less anchored. The choosing without the presence was the choosing of a person who was managing for his own sake rather than for someone else's, and Tom's own sake had never been a sufficient motivation for anything. He found, over the years, a replacement, a principle. The principle was Dumbledore's last instruction: be your own boundary. The principle was not a person. The principal did not make tea or tell jokes about lemon drops or sit across a kitchen table telling Tom the truth about himself. The principal was cold, abstract, and entirely self-generated. It was enough. It had to be enough. Because it was all that was available. Tom Riddle died in 2020. He was 93 years old. The death was natural. The same natural end that Dumbledore had described as the next great adventure. Tom had not sought immortality. Tom had not made Horcruxes. Tom had accepted, with the analytical acceptance that characterized all of his emotional processing, that death was the thing that happened, and that the happening was not within his control. He died in his flat. Alone, the tea was on the table, the last cup, the lemon drops dissolved, the ritual maintained until the end. The diary was on the desk. Open, the last entry, written that morning, said, "Observation, I am dying." The process is not unpleasant. The darkness is quiet. I choose to note that the darkness has been quiet for several years. Whether this constitutes a change in the darkness or a change in my perception of the darkness is unclear. The distinction may not matter. What matters is the practice held. For 79 years, through the tea and the walks and the boundary and the 23 years without the boundary maker, the practice held. That is, adequate, and adequate, as established, is the highest compliment available. He died with the diary open and the tea cold and the lemon drops dissolved in the cup. The world continued. The world that had been saved by breakfast. The world that existed because a man had made tea for a monster for 40 years, and the monster had drunk it, and the drinking had been the practice, and the practice had been the management, and the management had been enough. Barely. On most days. Enough? Albus Dumbledore did not create a hero. He did not save Tom Riddle's soul. He did not transform darkness into light. He did not prove that love conquers all, because love was not available and conquering was not the mechanism. What Dumbledore did was smaller. What Dumbledore did was larger. He made tea. He burned eggs. He walked through a village with a boy who hated walking. He told the truth about the cave and the darkness and the things the darkness could become. He sat across a kitchen table for 40 years and said, "You have darkness. The darkness is permanent. Choose anyway." Tom chose. Not because he was good, not because the raising had made him good, because the choosing had become the practice, and the practice had become the habit, and the habit had become the closest thing to identity that Tom Riddle had ever possessed. I choose not to be the worst version of myself. That is who I am. That is all I am. It was not love. It was not redemption. It was not the story the world wanted. It was management. The daily, grinding, unglamorous, nobody writes songs about it management of a person whose nature was catastrophic and whose choices were not. The choices were enough. Barely, most days. Enough. Final threads Ariana. What Dumbledore carried the Ariana story was the thing Dumbledore carried alongside the Tom responsibility, and the carrying of both was the thing that aged him. Ariana Dumbledore had died in 1899. She was 14. She died in a three-way duel between Albus, Aberforth and Gellert Grindelwald, a duel that was the culmination of a summer of ambition and ideology and the intoxicating destructive quality of brilliant young people convinced they were right. Dumbledore told Tom about Ariana in their 4th year. The telling was deliberate, timed to coincide with Tom's increasing awareness of his own capacity for darkness, designed to provide the context that would make the lesson land. She couldn't control her magic, Dumbledore said. They were in the garden at Godric's Hollow. The evening was warm. The conversation was not. After the attack, the Muggle boys who assaulted her, who saw her performing magic and were frightened and responded with violence, her magic became unstable. It erupted. Without control, without intention. She was dangerous to herself, to others. Your parents? Tom said. My mother died containing one of Ariana's episodes, Dumbledore said. The eruption was too powerful. My mother absorbed it, and the absorption killed her. And your father? Tom said. My father attacked the Muggle boys who had assaulted Ariana, Dumbledore said. He was imprisoned in Azkaban. He died there. Your family was destroyed, Tom said. My family was destroyed by a combination of violence, unstable magic, and my own subsequent failure to provide what Ariana needed, Dumbledore said. What did she need? Tom said. What you need, Dumbledore said. Attention, patience, a person who put her needs above their own ambitions. And you didn't provide that, Tom said. I was 17, Dumbledore said. I was brilliant. I was ambitious. I met Gellert Grindelwald and we planned to reshape the wizarding world, and the planning was more important to me than my sister. You chose ambition over family, Tom said. I chose greatness over care, Dumbledore said. And the choosing killed my sister. Tom was quiet. The quiet was not the calculating quiet, it was the processing quiet. The quiet of someone absorbing information that was emotionally significant to the person providing it, even if the absorber couldn't fully feel the emotional significance. You told me this because you want me to understand the cost of choosing ambition over people, Tom said. I told you because you deserve the truth, Dumbledore said. And because the truth is, I am not a good man. I am a man who did a terrible thing and who has spent 40 years trying to compensate. By raising me, Tom said. By doing for you what I failed to do for Ariana, Dumbledore said. Paying attention, being present, choosing care over ambition. You're compensating for your sister's death by raising a potential Dark Lord, Tom said. That's an unusual therapeutic approach. I prefer the term applied redemption, Dumbledore said. Applied redemption, Tom said. Is that a real thing? It is now, Dumbledore said. Tom looked at the garden, at the house, at the village where Ariana had lived and died and where Dumbledore continued to live because leaving would have been running. We're both broken, Tom said. Yes, Dumbledore said. You by guilt, Tom said. Me by everything. Yes, Dumbledore said. And the tea is the thing that holds the broken pieces together, Tom said. The tea and the honesty and the walks and the practice, Dumbledore said. Yes, that's a very fragile system, Tom said. All systems are fragile, Dumbledore said. The strong-looking ones are just better at hiding it. Is that wisdom? Tom said. That's experience, Dumbledore said. Wisdom is what you do with it. Year 7. The departure Tom's graduation from Hogwarts was the transition that both he and Dumbledore had been preparing for and dreading. Preparing, because the graduation was the purpose, raising Tom to be a functional adult who could exist in the world without destroying it. Dreading, because the graduation meant the daily presence was ending. The kitchen table conversations would become monthly visits. The daily management would become self-management. The boundary would be maintained at a distance. I'm leaving, Tom said on the last night before graduation. They were in the kitchen. The tea was the same. The conversation was not. You're graduating, Dumbledore said. That's different from leaving. The result is the same, Tom said. I won't be in the castle. You won't be across the table every morning. No, Dumbledore said. You'll be across the table once a month. Once a month is not every day, Tom said. No, Dumbledore said. It isn't. Tom looked at his tea, at the lemon drops dissolving, at the cup that had been his cup for 7 years, the blue cup, the one Dumbledore had designated as Tom's on the first morning. I'm not ready, Tom said. I know, Dumbledore said. The darkness is managed when you're here, when the table is here, when the routine is here. I don't know what happens when the routine is gone. The routine is not gone, Dumbledore said. The routine is relocated. You will make tea in your own kitchen. You will sit at your own table. The routine is the practice, not the location. The location is where you are, Tom said. The routine without you is just. Ritual. Ritual is powerful, Dumbledore said. Ritual is how humans manage the things that are too large to manage through thought alone. I'm not sure I'm human enough for ritual, Tom said. You are exactly human enough, Dumbledore said. That is the achievement of 7 years. Exactly human enough, Tom said. That should be on my transcript. I'll suggest it to dip it, Dumbledore said. Tom didn't smile, but the not smiling was the Tom not smile. The controlled absence of expression that was, for people who knew Tom, functionally identical to a smile. I'll see you next month, Tom said. I'll be here, Dumbledore said. With the tea, Tom said. With the terrible tea, Dumbledore said. Adequate tea, Tom said. Adequate and terrible, Dumbledore confirmed. Tom left the next morning. He walked out of Hogwarts with a suitcase that was not the orphanage suitcase. It was a new suitcase, purchased by Dumbledore, containing clothes that were Tom's, and books that were Tom's, and the diary that was Tom's. The suitcase contained things that belonged to him without having been taken from someone else. He walked down the path from the castle to the gate. The walk was the walk he'd taken 100 times, to Hogsmeade, to the grounds, to the forest edge where the Thestrals gathered, and where Tom had spent evenings observing creatures he found fascinating because they were visible only to people who had encountered death. At the gate, he stopped. He turned. He looked at the castle that had been his school and his home, and the place where the most important person in his life had sat across a table from him and told him the truth for 7 years. He didn't wave. Tom didn't wave. Waving was a social performance, and Tom didn't perform for empty corridors. But he looked. For a long time. The looking was the Tom goodbye, analytical, thorough. The cataloguing of every detail, because Tom remembered everything, and the remembering was the carrying, and the carrying was the practice. He turned. He walked through the gate. He went to London. The practice continued. What the other teachers saw, the Hogwarts staff saw fragments of Tom. Each saw a different fragment, because Tom presented different surfaces to different people, and the surfaces were curated with the analytical precision that was his defining quality. Slughorn saw brilliance. Slughorn adored Tom, and Tom tolerated the adoring because Slughorn was useful. Connections, recommendations, the social infrastructure of the wizarding elite, and because tolerating Slughorn's enthusiasm was the kind of social management that Tom could perform without effort. My greatest student, Slughorn said at every gathering for 40 years after Tom's graduation. Remarkable boy. Remarkable, Slughorn sees the trophy version, Dumbledore observed, the polished, presentable, put-on-the-shelf version. The trophy version is the one he paid for, Tom said. He collected me. He deserves the collected version. Nobody deserves a false version of anyone, Dumbledore said. The false version is all most people can handle, Tom said. That's pessimistic, Dumbledore said. That's empirical, Tom said. Dippet, the headmaster, saw an excellent student. Not exceptional, Dippet lacked the perceptiveness to see past Tom's surface. Dippet saw grades and deportment and the well-managed exterior and concluded that Tom Riddle was a credit to the school. Dippet sees what Tom shows him, Dumbledore said, which is exactly what Tom wants him to see. Isn't that manipulation? McGonagall asked. It is management, Dumbledore said. Manipulation has malicious intent. Tom's management of Dippet is defensive. He shows Dippet the surface because showing Dippet the depth would produce alarm rather than understanding. And if Dippet saw the depth, McGonagall said, Dippet would panic, Dumbledore said, and panicked headmasters make bad decisions about students. You don't panic, McGonagall said. I have spent 4 years developing the capacity not to panic about Tom Riddle, Dumbledore said. It is, after transfiguration and alchemy, my third greatest skill. The professors who taught Tom saw different things depending on their own emotional intelligence. Those with high emotional intelligence, few. The Hogwarts staff of the 1940s was not selected for emotional capability, saw the coldness underneath the polish, and were uneasy. Those with low emotional intelligence saw the polish and were impressed. The one professor who saw Tom clearly, besides Dumbledore, was Professor Merrythought, who taught defense against the dark arts and who possessed the battle-hardened perceptiveness of someone who had been identifying threats for 40 years. That boy, Merrythought said to Dumbledore in a private conversation in the staff room. That Riddle. Yes, Dumbledore said. He's dangerous, Merrythought said. Yes, Dumbledore said. You're managing him, Merrythought said. Yes, Dumbledore said. Is it working? Merrythought said. Today, it's working, Dumbledore said. Tomorrow is tomorrow. That's not reassuring, Merrythought said. With Tom, Dumbledore said, reassurance is never available. Adequate is the maximum. Adequate, Merrythought said. It's the highest compliment in our household, Dumbledore said. What the world didn't know the world did not know about Tom Riddle's darkness. The world saw a brilliant researcher, a peculiar personality, a man who worked at the Department of Mysteries and published papers, and who was, by all available evidence, an extremely talented, moderately antisocial, entirely harmless member of the wizarding community. The world did not know that the man who published papers on enchantment matrices had, at 11, terrorized children in a cave. That the man who attended ministry functions with the controlled, polished exterior of a professional had, at 12, discovered the Chamber of Secrets and considered commanding a basilisk. That the man who maintained a flat in London and visited Godric's Hollow once a month had carried darkness inside him for 60 years and had chosen every morning to keep it contained. The not knowing was intentional. Dumbledore had never told anyone the full truth about Tom. Not the staff, not the ministry, not the order that didn't need to exist. The full truth would have produced fear. And fear would have produced the institutional response that institutions deployed against threats, containment, surveillance, the systemic dehumanization of a person who was already struggling to feel human. If they knew, Tom said to Dumbledore at 40, if the ministry knew what I am, what I could do, they would respond with force, Dumbledore said, which would produce the exact circumstances most likely to activate the darkness. So the secret protects me, Tom said. The secret protects everyone, Dumbledore said. You from the world's fear, the world from the consequences of provoking you. That's a precarious arrangement, Tom said. All arrangements involving you are precarious, Dumbledore said. I've made peace with precariousness. You've made tea with precariousness, Tom said. Same thing, Dumbledore said. The secret held. For 79 years, the secret held. Tom Riddle lived and died as a brilliant, peculiar, harmless researcher, and the world never knew that the harmlessness had been a daily choice, and that the choosing had been the most important thing anyone in the wizarding world had ever done. The world didn't need to know. The world needed to survive. The surviving was the achievement, and the achievement belonged to two people who sat at a kitchen table drinking terrible tea and telling each other the truth. This is the story of the most important thing Albus Dumbledore ever did. Not the defeat of Grindelwald, not the leadership of Hogwarts, not the strategic brilliance that would have, in another timeline, guided the resistance against Voldemort. The most important thing Dumbledore ever did was make tea. Every morning. For 7 years of guardianship. Once a month for 30 more. Terrible tea with lemon drops in a kitchen that was too cluttered and too small for a boy who hated the taste and drank it anyway because the drinking was the ritual, and the ritual was the boundary between what he was and what he could become. The tea was not magic. The tea was practice. The practice was not redemption. The practice was management. The management was not enough. The management was barely enough. The management was adequate. And adequate, in the vocabulary of two broken people who spent 40 years telling each other the truth across a kitchen table, was the highest compliment available. The world was saved by breakfast. The world didn't know. The world didn't need to know. The world just needed to survive. It survived. Barely, adequately, enough, last threads, the return of the stolen things in Tom's 6th year. Something happened that Dumbledore had not anticipated, and that Tom himself could not explain. It was December. Tom was walking through Diagon Alley, the Christmas shopping trip that Dumbledore insisted on, because Dumbledore believed in rituals, and because the Christmas shopping trip was one of them. Tom did not enjoy shopping. Tom did not enjoy most activities that required interaction with strangers. But the shopping trip was the ritual, and the ritual was the practice, and Tom had been doing the practice for 5 years. They passed a shop that sold children's toys. In the window, there was a yo-yo, a bright, primary-coloured yo-yo that looked nothing like the one Tom had stolen from Billy Stubbs 6 years ago. But the shape was the same, the mechanism was the same, the memory was the same. Tom stopped, in the street, in front of the shop window, looking at a yo-yo. "Tom?" Dumbledore said. "I want to buy something," Tom said. "What?" Dumbledore said. "A yo-yo," Tom said. "You don't play with yo-yos," Dumbledore said. "It's not for me," Tom said. Dumbledore looked at him, at this 16-year-old who had, for reasons that were not immediately apparent, decided to purchase a yo-yo for someone else. "For whom?" Dumbledore said. "Billy Stubbs," Tom said. "From the orphanage." The one I took from. You want to replace the stolen yo-yo, Dumbledore said. I want to. Tom stopped. The stopping was the old kind, the kind that meant the analytical mind was encountering something it couldn't classify. I don't know what I want to do. I know that the yo-yo in the window produced a response. Not guilt. I don't feel guilt. Something adjacent. Adjacent to guilt, Dumbledore said. The recognition that the taking had a cost to someone else, Tom said, and the recognition that the cost was real even if I can't feel it. That's called conscience, Dumbledore said. I thought I didn't have one, Tom said. You didn't, Dumbledore said. This may be the beginning of one. A beginning, Tom said, at 16. Late is better than never, Dumbledore said. Is a beginning enough? Tom said. A beginning is adequate, Dumbledore said. Tom bought the yo-yo. He sent it to the orphanage, anonymously, addressed to Billy Stubbs. He included no note, no explanation, no return address. The sending was not an apology. Tom could not apologize, because Tom could not feel the remorse that apology required. The sending was acknowledgement, the recognition that a thing had been taken and that the taking had mattered to someone other than the taker. It was the smallest possible moral act, the most minimal expression of conscience imaginable. It was the first one Tom Riddle had ever performed voluntarily. Dumbledore noted it in his private journal, December 14th, 1944, Tom purchased a yo-yo. The implications are more significant than the object. The architecture of conscience may be developing. Slowly, minimally, but developing. The practice continues. Tom and Fawkes, Dumbledore's phoenix, had an uncomplicated relationship with Tom Riddle. The relationship was that Fawkes did not like Tom. This was significant because phoenixes were creatures of pure goodness, beings whose nature was aligned with love, loyalty, and the specific quality of soul that dark magic corroded. Fawkes' dislike of Tom was not personal. It was diagnostic. Fawkes could sense the darkness in Tom the way a compass could sense magnetic north, automatically without choice, as a function of the instrument's nature. Your bird hates me, Tom said at 12. Fawkes does not hate, Dumbledore said. Fawkes is uncomfortable with me, Tom said. With the quality you carry, Dumbledore said, the darkness. Fawkes can feel it. Can you feel it? Tom said. I can see it, Dumbledore said. Fawkes can feel it. The distinction is important. Seeing is cognitive. Feeling is instinctive. Fawkes' discomfort is not a judgment. It is a response. Tom looked at the phoenix, at the golden red bird on its perch, watching him with the steady, unblinking gaze of a creature that saw the inside of things. What does it feel? Tom said. The darkness. What does it feel like to the bird? I don't know, Dumbledore said. But I suspect it feels like absence. The absence of the thing that Fawkes is made of. Love, Tom said. Love, Dumbledore confirmed. The bird can feel that I can't love, Tom said. The bird can feel that you haven't yet, Dumbledore said. Which is different. Over the years, Fawkes' relationship with Tom evolved. Not into affection. Fawkes never displayed affection toward Tom the way the phoenix displayed it toward Dumbledore, the nuzzling, the singing, the physical warmth that phoenixes produced in the presence of people they loved. What Fawkes displayed was tolerance, the specific, measured, phoenix-grade tolerance of a creature that had decided, after years of observation, that the person in question was not a threat. Not good. Fawkes could not perceive Tom as good, but not actively dangerous. Managed, contained, the tolerance was visible in the way Fawkes stopped leaving the room when Tom arrived, in the way Fawkes stayed on the perch during Tom's visits, in the way Fawkes occasionally, very occasionally, sang a note when Tom was present. A single note. A single golden note that hung in the air of the kitchen, and that was, in the vocabulary of Phoenix communication, the minimum expression of acknowledgement. The bird sang, Tom said, at 30. Sitting at the kitchen table, the note still in the air. He did, Dumbledore said. For me? Tom said. In your presence, Dumbledore said. The causality is uncertain. The bird sang in my presence, Tom said. That hasn't happened before. No, Dumbledore said. It hasn't. What does it mean? Tom said. I think it means Fawkes has decided you're worth a note, Dumbledore said. One note, Tom said. One note is considerable. From a phoenix, Dumbledore said. Phoenix songs are not given lightly. One note in 30 years, Tom said. That's an extraordinary rate of progress. By Phoenix standards, it's breakneck, Dumbledore said. By human standards, it's glacial, Tom said. You're not operating on human standards, Dumbledore said. You're operating on Tom Riddle standards. And by Tom Riddle standards, eliciting a note from a phoenix is unprecedented. Tom looked at Fawkes. The phoenix looked back. The looking between them was the looking of two creatures who had been in the same room for 19 years and who had arrived, through proximity and practice and the slow accumulation of not being a threat, at something that was not friendship and not love, but that was acknowledgement. One note. In 30 years, that was the speed at which Tom Riddle's emotional development operated, one note per 30 years. And the note was not evidence of love or goodness or redemption. The note was evidence that a creature of pure goodness had decided that the darkness in Tom Riddle, while permanent, was being managed with sufficient diligence that one note was warranted. One note of acknowledgement from a creature that trafficked in love. For Tom Riddle, that was the most extraordinary compliment he had ever received. Tell the bird I appreciate it, Tom said. Fawkes knows, Dumbledore said. How? Tom said. Phoenixes know everything, Dumbledore said. It's extremely annoying. On that, Tom said, we agree. The kitchen table, final assessment, the kitchen table in Godric's Hollow was small, cluttered, and scarred from 40 years of use. The scars included a burn mark from the time Dumbledore set the tablecloth on fire while cooking eggs, 1939, a dent from the time Tom had slammed his fist on the table during the Unforgivables argument, 1943, a ring stain from 40 years of teacups placed in the same spot with the consistency of a ritual maintained by two people who found consistency essential. The table was not special. The table was wood and varnish and the accumulated damage of 4 decades. The table was also the most important piece of furniture in the history of the wizarding world. More important than the sorting hat stool. More important than the headmaster's desk. More important than the Pensieve's cabinet or the mirror of Erisyd's frame. Because the table was where the work happened. Where Dumbledore sat across from Tom and told him the truth. Where Tom sat across from Dumbledore and practiced being human. Where 2 cups of terrible lemon drop tea were consumed every morning for 7 years and once a month for 30 more, and where the consuming was the practice, and the practice was the management, and the management was the thing that kept the world from being destroyed by the person. Sitting across the table. The table survived Dumbledore. It survived Tom. It was in the house when Aberforth inherited it. And Aberforth kept the table because Aberforth kept everything. And because Aberforth, who had never forgiven his brother for choosing grand projects over family, recognised that this particular grand project had been worth the choosing. He saved the world with this table, Aberforth said to no one, standing in the kitchen. The brilliant idiot saved the world with burned eggs and lemon drops and a table that wobbles. The table wobbled. Aberforth fixed it with a stabilising charm. The table stood firm. The world stood firm, because a table had held two people who held each other accountable and who held the line between what was and what could have been. Not love, not redemption, not the story anyone wanted. Management, the daily, cold, analytical management of a person who carried darkness as other people carried heartbeats, involuntarily, permanently, as a condition of being alive. The management was not heroic. The management was breakfast. The breakfast was terrible. The tea was adequate. The conversation was honest. The honesty was the thing. The single, unbreakable 40-year commitment to telling the truth across a kitchen table to a person who could have destroyed the world if the truth had not been told. Albus Dumbledore made tea for a monster. The monster chose not to be monstrous. The choosing was not enough. The choosing was barely enough. The choosing was adequate. And adequate was the highest compliment either of them knew. The world was saved. Not by a spell, not by a sword, not by a boy with a scar. By a table. 2 cups, lemon drops. By a practice that held for 79 years, barely on most days. Enough? Epilogue threads what Tom said to Dumbledore's portrait Hogwarts kept portraits of its headmasters. The portraits were animated, imbued with the personality, knowledge, and conversational ability of the person they depicted. They were not the person. They were the echo. Tom visited Dumbledore's portrait once, not monthly. The monthly visits had been to the living Dumbledore, in the house, at the table. The portrait was in the headmaster's office, which was McGonagall's office by the time Tom visited, and the visiting required McGonagall's permission, which was given without question because McGonagall understood what the visit meant. "Hello, Tom," the portrait said. "Hello, Professor," Tom said. "You look well," the portrait said. "I look old," Tom said, which is the same thing at my age. "You chose old over the alternative," the portrait said. "I chose full over fragmented," Tom said, "as you predicted." "The ego argument," the portrait said. "I was rather proud of that one." "You should be," Tom said. It was the only argument that would have worked. Tom stood in front of the portrait. The portrait was... It was Dumbledore's face. The half-moon spectacles, the blue eyes. Not real. But the painter had captured the specific quality of Dumbledore's looking. The assessment, the warmth, the simultaneous impression of someone who was seeing you completely and who liked what they saw despite what they saw. "I've been managing," Tom said. "I know," the portrait said. "Without you," Tom said. "Without the living me," the portrait said. "The practice doesn't require my presence. It requires your choosing. The choosing is harder without you," Tom said. "The choosing was always hard," the portrait said. "My presence didn't make it easier. My presence made it visible." "Visible to whom?" Tom said. "To you," the portrait said. "The choosing, when witnessed, is more committed. When you chose in my presence, you were choosing in front of someone who would notice. Choosing alone is harder because no one notices." "I noticed," Tom said. "Then you are your own witness," the portrait said. "Which is sufficient." "Sufficient," Tom said. "Not adequate?" "Sufficient is above adequate," the portrait said. "You've been promoted." Tom looked at the portrait, at the painted face of the person who had been the most important presence in his life for 40 years, at the echo of the man who had made tea and burned eggs and walked through villages and told the truth about darkness. "I miss the tea," Tom said. "The tea was terrible," the portrait said. "I know," Tom said. "I miss it anyway." "That," the portrait said, "is the most human thing you've ever said." "You've said that before," Tom said, "and each time it's more true," the portrait said. Tom stood in the office for another minute. He did not speak. The portrait did not speak. The silence between them was the silence of two people, one of whom was painted, who had said everything that needed saying and who were comfortable with the space where the saying had been. "Goodbye, Professor," Tom said. "Goodbye, Tom," the portrait said. "I'll manage," Tom said. "I know you will," the portrait said. "You always have." Tom left the office. He walked through the castle, through the corridors that had been his school, past the potions classroom where he'd been a student, past the bathroom where the chamber entrance lay sealed under protections he and Dumbledore had built together. He walked out the front door, down the path, through the gate. He didn't look back. Tom didn't look back at things. Looking back was sentiment, and sentiment was a thing he had, a small thing, a managed thing, a thing that made him stop at the gate and not look back in a way that was, for Tom, indistinguishable from looking back. He went home. He made tea, with lemon drops. The tea was terrible. He drank it anyway. What nobody knew, the numbers, were the final assessment. The cold, analytical, Tom Riddle approved measurement of what the raising had produced. 0 Horcruxes made. In the other timeline, 7. 0 people murdered. In the other timeline, directly or by order, the count exceeded measurable numbers. 0 wars started. In the other timeline, 2. 0 families destroyed. In the other timeline, hundreds. 1 Phoenix Note received. 1 acknowledgement. 1 yo-yo returned. 40 years of tea. 30 more of practice. 1 word not spoken to a basilisk. 1 chamber sealed. 1 heritage visited without violence. 1 unforgivable not learned. 79 years of daily choosing. The numbers were cold. The numbers were adequate. The numbers were the entire argument for making tea for monsters. He was the most dangerous person who ever lived. He never harmed anyone. Both of these statements are true simultaneously, and the simultaneity is the entire story. The danger was real. The capacity was real. The darkness, the cold, analytical, world-reshaping darkness that could have produced the worst monster in magical history, was real and permanent and present every day for 79 years. The not harming was also real. The choosing was also real. The practice, the daily, grinding, unglamorous, lemon drop flavoured practice of not being the worst version of yourself was real and permanent and maintained every day for 79 years. Both things. All the time. The danger and the choosing. The darkness and the practice. The monster and the management. Albus Dumbledore looked at an 11-year-old orphan with stolen trophies in his wardrobe and said, "This child is mine. This darkness is mine to manage. This potential catastrophe is mine to prevent." He prevented it. Through breakfast, through tea, through walks and truth, and the relentless, exhausting 40-year commitment to sitting across a table from a person who could have destroyed the world and saying, "You have darkness. Choose anyway." Tom chose. Every day. For 79 years. Not love. Not goodness. Not the transformation that stories promise and that life rarely delivers. Management. Adequate. Enough. The unwritten letter in Tom's desk. When the flat was cleared after his death, they found an envelope. Sealed, addressed to no one. Inside was a single sheet of parchment. The parchment said, "To whomever finds this, I am Tom Marvolo Riddle. I was born in 1926 in a London orphanage to a witch who died in childbirth and a muggle who had been drugged into love. I was raised, from the age of 11, by Albus Dumbledore. The raising was the most important event in the history of the wizarding world, and nobody knows this. I am writing this letter because the truth should exist somewhere, even if it is never read. I was capable of terrible things. I am still capable of terrible things. The capability has not diminished with age. The capability is permanent. A feature of my architecture, not a phase of my development." What Dumbledore gave me was not the elimination of the capability. He gave me the practice of choosing against it. Every day. Without exception. Without rest. Without the belief that the choosing would ever become easy. The choosing never became easy. I am 93 years old and the choosing is as hard today as it was at 11. What changed is not the difficulty, but my tolerance for difficulty. I have become, through decades of practice, a person who can tolerate the hard thing without stopping. This is not goodness. This is endurance. The endurance of a person who was shown, through burned eggs and terrible tea and 40 years of honesty, that the alternative to the hard thing was the destruction of everything. I did not choose goodness. I chose management. The management was adequate. Adequate was the maximum available. If this letter is found by someone who carries darkness, by someone who has been told they are beyond help, beyond redemption, beyond the reach of whatever passes for grace in their understanding of the world, I offer the following observation. The darkness is real. The darkness is permanent. The darkness is not all you are. Someone told me this at 11, across a kitchen table over terrible tea. I didn't believe it then. I don't fully believe it now. But I chose to act as if it were true, and the acting became the practice, and the practice became the life. The life was not good. The life was not warm. The life was adequate. Adequate was enough. T.M. R. The letter was found by a ministry official clearing the flat. The official read it, didn't understand it, and filed it with the rest of Tom's personal effects. Nobody knew what it meant. Nobody knew what the letter described, the darkness, the practice, the 40 years of tea. Nobody needed to know. The world had survived. The survival was the evidence. The evidence was sufficient. What Dumbledore would have said if Dumbledore had been alive to read the letter, if the portrait could read, which it couldn't, because portraits saw but didn't interpret text, if Dumbledore had held the parchment and read the words that Tom had written at 93 in a flat in London with cold tea and dissolved lemon drops, Dumbledore would have said, "You called it adequate." And Tom, if Tom were there, would have said, "It was adequate." And Dumbledore would have said, "It was more than adequate, Tom. It was the hardest thing either of us ever did." And Tom would have said, "The tea was harder." And Dumbledore would have smiled. The Dumbledore smile. The one that said everything without saying it. And they would have sat at the table. And the tea would have been terrible. And the lemon drops would have dissolved. And the morning would have continued, ordinary and unremarkable, the way the mornings had continued for 40 years. Because that was the point. The morning continued. The world continued. The practice continued. And the continuing, the stubborn, graceless, adequate continuing of a person who had been given one table and one cup and one man who told the truth, the continuing was the story. Not the darkness, not the management, not the choosing, the continuing. The continuing was enough. The lemon drops were Dumbledore's contribution to the practice, and they outlasted everything else. Tom hated lemon drops. This was established in the first week and unchanged in the 59th year. The sweetness was too bright, too aggressive, too optimistic for a person whose palate was calibrated for bitterness. But the lemon drops were in the tea. Every morning, every visit, the dissolved sugar and the citrus and the warmth, the combination that was, objectively, terrible, and that was, subjectively, the taste of the most important relationship in Tom's life. After Dumbledore died, Tom continued buying lemon drops. He purchased them from the same sweet shop in Diagon Alley that Dumbledore had patronised, a shop called Sugar Plums, where the owner knew Dumbledore by name and had been selling him lemon drops for 60 years. For Professor Dumbledore, the owner said, the first time Tom came in. For me, Tom said, You're the one who visited him, the owner said. He mentioned you. Said you hated the lemon drops but drank them anyway. He told you that, Tom said. He told everyone, the owner said. He was very proud of it. Proud of making me drink terrible tea, Tom said. Proud that you drank it, the owner said. He said it was the most important thing you did. Tom bought the lemon drops. He put them in his tea. He drank the tea that was terrible and adequate, and the taste of 40 years of being told the truth by someone who cared enough to tell it. The lemon drops were the last piece of the practice, the last physical evidence of the man who had made the practice possible. The last taste of the boundary. Tom bought lemon drops every month until he died. The owner of Sugarplums never understood why a man who hated sweets bought them with the regularity of a ritual and the expression of someone performing an act of devotion. The owner didn't need to understand. The understanding was between two people. One of them was dead. One of them was drinking terrible tea in a flat in London, choosing every morning not to be the worst version of himself, and dissolving lemon drops in the cup because the dissolving was the practice, and the practice was the life, and the life was adequate. Adequate was enough. Let us know what you'd like to see next. Last thread. The first morning, August 1938. The first morning in the house at Godric's Hollow. Tom woke up in a bed that was his. Not the orphanage bed, the bed in the room that Dumbledore had said was his, with the desk and the window and the view of the garden. His room. His bed. His morning. The concept of his morning was new. At the orphanage, mornings belonged to the schedule, the bell, the queue for the bathroom, the communal breakfast, the institutional rhythm of 60 children moving through the same motions. This morning belonged to Tom. He lay in the bed and listened. The house was quiet in a way the orphanage was never quiet. The quiet of two people rather than 60. The quiet of a house that contained a man and a phoenix and an 11-year-old boy who was trying to understand what home meant. He went downstairs. The kitchen was warm. Dumbledore had lit the fire. The table was set for two. 2 cups. 2 plates. 2 sets of cutlery. The setting was for 2, because the household was 2, and the household had been 1, and was now 2, Dumb and Tom, and the addition was visible in the table's arithmetic. Dumbledore was at the stove, cooking eggs. The cooking was characteristic. The eggs were producing smoke, and Dumbledore was regarding them with the bemused expression of a man who could transfigure lead into gold, but could not reliably cook an egg. "Good morning," Dumbledore said. "Good morning," Tom said. "Eggs?" Dumbledore said. "They're burning," Tom said. "They are enthusiastically cooked," Dumbledore said. "They are on fire," Tom said. "A minor fire," Dumbledore said. "Barely perceptible." "The smoke is visible from the doorway," Tom said. "The smoke is atmospheric," Dumbledore said. Tom sat at the table, at the place that was set for him, the second place, the new place, the evidence that the household had expanded from 1 to 2. Dumbledore served the eggs. They were, as predicted, burned. The toast was better. The toast was merely overdone, which was a significant improvement on the eggs. The tea was tea, with lemon drops, which Tom had never tried, and which Dumbledore assured him was the correct way to drink tea despite all available evidence to the contrary. "This is terrible," Tom said, tasting the tea. "This is adequate," Dumbledore said. "Adequate by whose standard?" Tom said. "By mine," Dumbledore said. "And in this kitchen, my standard is the standard." "Your standard includes burned eggs and lemon drop tea," Tom said. "My standard includes consistency," Dumbledore said. "The eggs will be burned tomorrow as well, and the day after. The consistency is the point. The point of consistently bad cooking," Tom said. "The point of consistently showing up," Dumbledore said. "Every morning, the same table, the same eggs, the same tea. The consistency tells you something. What does it tell me? Tom said. That I will be here tomorrow, Dumbledore said. And the day after. And the day after that. The burned eggs are the evidence. Evidence of incompetence, Tom said. Evidence of commitment, Dumbledore said. I could cook the eggs perfectly. I choose not to. Why? Tom said. Because perfection is intimidating, Dumbledore said. And what you need is not perfection. You need the reassurance that the person across the table is human. Flawed, real, someone who burns eggs because they are thinking about something else, which is to say, thinking about you. You were thinking about me while cooking the eggs, Tom said. I am always thinking about you, Dumbledore said. It is exhausting and necessary. Tom looked at the burned eggs, at the overdone toast, at the terrible tea with the dissolved lemon drops, at the kitchen table where a man who could have been doing anything, running the world, discovering magical secrets, pursuing the kind of greatness that his intelligence deserved, was instead sitting across from an 11-year-old orphan, cooking badly and telling the truth. I'll eat the eggs, Tom said. I hoped you would, Dumbledore said. Tom ate the eggs. The eggs were terrible. The toast was overdone. The tea was not unpleasant. The mourning continued. The mournings continued for 40 years. And the continuing was the thing. The mornings, the eggs, the table, the tea, the mundane, daily, entirely unheroic practice of two people sitting across from each other and choosing. Every morning, to be honest. The honesty saved the world. The eggs were still terrible. Both things were true. Both things were enough. This is the story of breakfast. The most important breakfast in the history of the wizarding world. Burned eggs, overdone toast, terrible tea with lemon drops, served on a small table in a cluttered kitchen in Godric's Hollow by a man who could transfigure lead into gold, but who chose, every morning for 40 years, to burn the eggs instead. Because the burning was the evidence. The burning said, I am here. I am human. I am flawed. I am committed. And the boy across the table, the boy who would have become the worst thing the world had ever seen, ate the eggs every morning for 40 years. And the eating was the choosing, and the choosing was the practice, and the practice was the management, and the management was the thing that stood between the world and its destruction. Not a spell, not a hero, not a prophecy. Breakfast, adequate, enough,